Chapter 11. Meng Qi looked at the two disciples. She turned and bowed to Elder Yang. Elder Yang, this disciple will leave first. I will come to ask for your guidance tomorrow. Wait. Elder Yang also looked at the two disciples. Did the sect leader say why he was looking for Meng Qi? He did not have any doubts about the sect leader, but he was slightly wary of the elder of Burning Sky Palace that the two disciples mentioned. Meng Qi was a disciple that he valued. This child had a calm personality and liked medicine. Elder Yang hoped that she could go far on the path of medicine. The elder of Burning Sky Palace has come to the sect today. The disciples of Clear Wind Valley did not like to be disciples of this elder who did not like to manage matters. But Elder Yang was one of the 3 Jindan Shouja of the sect. His medical skills were above the sect leaders. The disciple standing on the left respectfully reported, he mentioned that the young palace master of Burning Sky Palace was poisoned in order to save Shamai Lu Qingran and was cured by our Clear Wind Valley. Elder Yang nodded slightly. He also knew about this matter. But the poison that the young palace master was poisoned with came from a 5th grade Mo. The person from Burning Sky Palace was led by an elder at the peak of Yuanying. The elder wanted to know the details. So the sect leader invited Shamai Meng Qi to come to the main hall. The disciple on the right looked at the expressionless Elder Yang and couldn't help but say, the elder of Burning Sky Palace is really strong. He just came to our Clear Wind Valley today and has not even seen Shamai Meng Qi. Yet he knows that Shamai is in the library. He paused and then said, as expected, Shamai has come to find the elder again. Elder Yang's eyes, which had been slowly closing, opened again. He stood and looked deeply at the disciple. This elder did not stay in the sect for long. When he stayed, he mostly stayed in the library. The disciples had little contact with him. When his cold gaze swept over them, the two disciples buried their heads even lower and did not dare to meet Elder Yang's gaze. Let's go. Elder Yang's words were directed at Meng Qi. I'll go with you. Elder, this disciple can handle it. Meng Qi bowed respectfully. Elder Yang just didn't like to be entangled in worldly affairs, but he wasn't stupid. Meng Qi could tell that there was something wrong with the two disciples' words. How could Elder Yang, who had been to so many places and met so many people over the years, not be able to tell? Let's go. Elder Yang took the lead and walked forward. The Burning Sky Palace's elder has personally come. As an elder of the Cool Breeze Valley, it's time for you to show your face. He spoke much more kindly to Meng Qi. Actually, Elder Yang didn't look very old. His hair was black, and his cheeks were thin. When he stood up straight, even though he was wearing the simplest of green robes, it was difficult to conceal his immortal aura. Yes. Meng Qi was grateful. She had died once, so she was more sensitive to such kindness. She followed behind Elder Yang. This elder, who had made a great vow to cure all the diseases in the world, found it slightly difficult to move. Meng Qi hurried forward and held his arm. This was an injury left behind by Elder Yang when he was out traveling last time to save the people of a small town who had been injured by a poisonous beast. At that time was tight, so Elder Yang could only transfer the poison into his body first. Then, he forced it below his knees. This way, it wouldn't affect him saving people. But that beast was very powerful, and the poison gas had been in Elder Yang's body for too long. Although he used medicine to force it out later, there was still some residual poison left. Meng Qi had read many books and knew that this matter couldn't be rushed. He could only wait for the residual poison to be removed. Elder Yang was now at the 6th stage of the Golden Core realm. When he broke through to the next stage, the residual poison would naturally be removed. The two disciples followed far behind. Elder Yang didn't walk fast, so they didn't dare to rush him. What poison is it? Elder Yang asked as he walked. The poison is from a 5th grade demonic beast, but it should be from a 4th grade demonic beast. The Burning Sky Palace's young palace master is at the Golden Core realm, so I was able to use the 4th stage Cool Breeze technique to remove the poison for him. Meng Qi had nothing to hide from this elder who took care of him. When the two disciples behind them heard this, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They looked at each other. Cool Breeze technique. 4th stage. They didn't hear wrong. right? They entered the sect 3 or 4 years earlier than Meng Qi, and now they had just reached the second stage of the cool breeze technique. Everyone knew that the higher the level of the technique, the harder it was to raise the level. Not to mention, what was so good about this kind of low-level first-grade technique? Not bad. Elder Yang nodded. She didn't know if he was praising Meng Qi for curing Chu Tianfeng or praising her fourth-stage cool breeze technique. Are you injured? After he finished asking, he raised his left hand, and a clear light swept over Meng Qi. Not bad. Elder Yang nodded again, and there was a bit of warmth in his eyes. It's good for a doctor to practice medicine and cure people, but you should also protect yourself. Yes. Meng Qi couldn't help but smile. Elder Yang, who taught her like this, was still enduring the residual poison from forgetting to protect herself in order to save people. But she didn't say anything. There were 3,000 paths of Shouja. Medical Xiu had always been a relatively unpopular existence. But probably because of the existence of an elder Shouja like Elder Yang, Meng Qi always felt that she never regretted stepping onto this path. In reality, she knew. Elder Yang was a Jindan Shouja. Even if his legs weren't well, he didn't need her to support him. Jindan Shouja could control talismans to fly in the air. This bit of residual poison was not a problem for Elder Yang. He just wanted to ask about the situation out of concern for himself. Cool Breeze Valley wasn't large. After understanding the situation he wanted to know, Elder Yang's steps quickened. They quickly reached the side door of the hall. 2 disciples hurriedly stepped forward and respectfully pushed open the door for Elder Yang. The hall should have been discussing something. Hearing the sound of the door opening, everyone stopped talking and turned to look. Yang Shidi, the sect leader of Cool Breeze Valley, stood. Why have you come? As she spoke, she introduced him to the elder of Burning Sky Palace sitting on the other side. This is my Shidi, one of the elders of Cool Breeze Valley. Last year, he was poisoned to save people. The poison invaded the channels in his legs. Now, he can't move and is recovering in the sect Siluk. The elder of Burning Sky Palace stood up. Are you Yang Mingfeng, fellow Yang? As a great circle Yuanying Shouja, compared to Elder Yang Mingfeng, it wasn't as simple as just one great realm. The elder of Burning Sky Palace bowed politely. I've long heard of your sect's Elder Yang's benevolence as a doctor. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. Fellow Daoist is too polite. Yang Mingfeng politely returned the greeting. His expression was indifferent. He wasn't particularly warm to the powerful person from Burning Sky Palace. It wasn't even as amiable as when he faced Meng Qi. Meng Qi supported him and sat down in the seat below the sect leader. She first bowed to the sect leader before looking at the people from Burning Sky Palace. This time, other than a great circle Yuanying elder, there were 2 other Yuanying Shouja from Burning Sky Palace. Meng Qi had been locked in the dungeon in her last life. She didn't know how serious the Yarrow World's attack was this time. But Yuanying Shouja, especially Shouja who were about to step into spirit severing. They were strong in the entire east border. There was a barrier between the 3,000 worlds and the Yarrow World. The higher the level of the Yarrow Shouja, the greater the backlash they would receive if they wanted to break through the barrier. There was only a small town where Cool Breeze Valley was located. It wasn't worth the Yarrow World sending out a large army. 3 Yuanying Shouja should be enough to protect Cool Breeze Valley. Meng Qi relaxed. She also noticed that Chu Tianfeng wasn't in the hall. She didn't know where he went. Meng Qi sighed in relief. She had been in a hurry to save the little white tiger and didn't want to tangle with him. Seeing the people from Burning Sky Palace now, she recalled Chu Tianfeng's great soul oath and felt a headache. The elder of Burning Sky Palace had already retracted his gaze. He looked with a slight smile at the sect leader of Cool Breeze Valley. Your sect is really full of talents. With such a benevolent doctor as fellow Daoist Yang, no wonder you could cultivate such a brave and fearless disciple as little friend Lu. As he spoke, his smiling gaze fell on Lu Qingran who was standing beside the sect leader. When the elder arrived at Cool Breeze Valley, Chu Tianfeng and Meng Qi had just gone to the valley to gather herbs. The sect leader of Cool Breeze Valley welcomed him in the hall. So he already knew how Lu Qingran had stood in front of his martial nephew. Even though the other was just a little Zhuji Shouja, she was as beautiful as a flower. He also heard that his martial nephew could even give up his life to save the other. The elder of Burning Sky Palace felt he understood. Lu Qingran's face reddened and she hurriedly said, "Elder, you are too polite. In the end, it was Tianfeng who saved me. I was the one who dragged him down and got poisoned." Meng Qi didn't listen to their pleasantries. She knew that Cool Breeze Valley would later merge into Burning Sky Palace. She also remembered that Shujie Lu Qingran would become an honored guest of Burning Sky Palace. Because everyone knew that the young palace master liked her. But in her last life, she had been locked in the dungeon. In this life, she didn't need to waste those 3 months. Meng Qi thought happily. She looked down and stood solemnly beside Elder Yang. She held the bamboo slip Elder Yang gave her with one hand and began to read it seriously. The elder of Burning Sky Palace said a few polite words and then said, "Sect leader just said that the person who cured my martial nephew's poison was someone else. Was it fellow Daoist Yang?" He glanced over and saw that Meng Qi was only at the qi condensation stage. If there was anyone in Cool Breeze Valley who had better medical skills than the sect leader, it would be this big-hearted elder Yang Mingfeng. Before the sect leader had time to explain, the door to the hall was pushed open again. A black-clothed youth walked in quickly from outside the door. "Martial uncle." Chu Tianfeng first cupped his hands and bowed to the elder. "Martial nephew Tianfeng." The elder of Burning Sky Palace looked at his martial nephew. "You've finally arrived." He explained, "Your father received a message from you and told me to bring people to help you." Chu Tianfeng was the young palace master and the future palace master of Burning Sky Palace. He was also a famous cultivation genius. Although the elders in the sect had higher cultivation than him, they were still quite polite to him. Their tone was even a bit like they were reporting work to their superiors. Lu Qingran also blushed and looked shyly at Chu Tianfeng. She knew that Chu Tianfeng was the young palace master of Burning Sky Palace. She also knew that the handsome youth was already one of the best among the young Shouja. But right now, she saw with her own eyes that even a powerful Yuanying Shouja was somewhat respectful to him. Lu Qingran looked at Chu Tianfeng's handsome face that was getting closer and closer. She only felt her heart pounding. Meng Qi didn't look at Chu Tianfeng at all. She looked down at the ground. She was already halfway through reading the bamboo scroll. If the little white tiger was really poisoned by the strange poison recorded on the bamboo scroll. Not to mention the current Meng Qi, even if she had formed her core before she died in her previous life, she would still be powerless. But there had to be a way. She would definitely think of a way. She probably had to go to the library more in this period of time. The moment the black-robed youth entered the hall, his gaze landed on Meng Qi. He didn't even look at Lu Qingran and silently walked to the side of the Burning Sky Palace elder. Martial nephew Tianfeng, the elder looked at him with a slight smile. "I've already seen the sect leader and this young friend Lu Qingran. I didn't think that there would be such a brave and kind girl in Cool Breeze Valley. I think that your mother would like her very much." Chu Tianfeng's jaw suddenly tightened. His gaze swept coldly over Lu Qingran and he said faintly, "Shishu, this disciple was actually saved by this fellow Daoist." As Chu Tianfeng spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at Meng Qi. The Burning Sky Palace elder's gaze suddenly landed on Meng Qi, light flashing in his eyes. "Lianqi Shouja?" He was a bit surprised, but he also knew that this martial nephew of his had been very proud since childhood. If this girl hadn't really saved him, he definitely wouldn't have said this. The girl's appearance was good, but what was she doing? The Burning Sky Palace elder widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Meng Qi in surprise. He was a nascent soul cultivator, so he could naturally see. This girl was seriously reading a book. In this hall, in front of him and her sect leader, Chu Tianfeng's actions were already a bit disrespectful to Lu Qingran. The eyes of the Cool Breeze Valley disciples in the hall all landed on Lu Qingran, whose face instantly flushed red. They were a bit confused. Wasn't it just a few days ago that this young palace master affectionately carried Lu Qingran back to the sect? Then everyone quickly looked at Meng Qi. The young palace master of Burning Sky Palace actually admitted in public that she had saved him. Junior Marshal Sister Meng-Chi would definitely become an honored guest of Burning Sky Palace, right? There were too many envious gazes, and they were too intense. Meng-Chi finally came back to her senses. The elder of Burning Sky Palace coughed softly and looked at her. "Thank you, little friend, for saving my martial nephew. Burning Sky Palace is grateful for this great kindness, but we can't repay it." The elder was indeed a little surprised. At this point, he hadn't thought about what to say next. He paused. "No need," Meng-Chi waved her hand and said frankly, "Young Palace Master Chu has already paid enough spirit stones." Spirit stones? The elder of Burning Sky Palace was at a loss. She had saved the young palace master of the sect. Such a great kindness would bring many benefits. What was this girl talking about? Did she know what she would miss for a few spirit stones? Before the elder could come back to his senses, Meng-Chi raised her hand, and 2 bamboo slips were held between her slender fingers. Young Palace Master Chu's storage bag seems to have been destroyed when he was fighting the demon. As she spoke, she glanced at Lu Qingran and said, "If it's convenient for you, elder, you can help him pay off his debt." "I'm very grateful." Chapter 12. Meng-Chi. The Cool Breeze Valley sect master's face was also red, and he hurriedly scolded his disciple, "Don't be rude." The atmosphere in the entire hall became a little strange. The disciples of the Cool Breeze Valley looked at the familiar scene in front of them. A few days ago, a similar scene seemed to have played out. They thought in a daze, "I didn't expect junior sister Meng-Chi to really cure young Palace Master Chu, who even the sect master was helpless against." The Burning Sky Palace elder looked at his martial nephew. Chu Tianfeng blushed slightly, but he wasn't angry. He looked at Meng-Chi again. As a nascent soul stage powerhouse, how could the elder have spirit stones on him? Cough. "Little friend, you're really interesting." The Burning Sky Palace elder coughed lightly and motioned for his disciple to step forward and take the 2 bamboo slips. "Master." The disciple looked back at the bamboo slips quickly and was also a little confused. A total of 5 6th-grade spirit stones and 3 3rd-grade spirit stones. Chu Tianfeng looked at Meng-Chi. The second bamboo slip he gave didn't fill in the specific number of spirit stones. It seemed that Meng-Chi had filled it in herself. She didn't take advantage of him, and what she asked for was just her price. Not being ripped off, Chu Tianfeng was a little unhappy. Saving the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace, only charging so few spirit stones was too little. But it didn't matter. He looked at Meng-Chi quietly, and his slightly red face became calm again. The corners of his lips were even slightly raised, revealing an extremely faint smile. "Thank you." After receiving the elder's affirmation, the disciple handed a bag of spirit stones to Meng-Chi. She took a look at it and put it into her bracelet storage space. What did 5 6th-grade spirit stones mean in the Trichilia chasm? In the Cool Breeze Valley where Meng-Chi was, there would be some rewards for completing a sect mission. Generally, it was 10 to 100 1st-grade spirit stones. The more difficult missions would at most give 100 2nd-grade spirit stones. However, such a mission often took a month or even longer, and there would be many dangers. 1,000 1st-grade spirit stones could only be exchanged for 1 2nd-grade spirit stone. 1,000 2nd-grade spirit stones could only be exchanged for 1 3rd-grade spirit stone. In other words, all of the Cool Breeze Valley's disciples would have to work hard for several years to gather these 6th-grade spirit stones. If he took it outside the mountain gate, in the city, even in the most prosperous and safest cities in the Eastern Land, which were attached to the 10 great sects of the Eastern Land, he could also buy a big house with 3 entrances and 3 exits. Of course, this didn't mean much to Xiuzhe. The Xiuzhe with high cultivation did not care so much about Ling stones. What they needed were the treasures of heaven and earth. The disciples of Cool Breeze Valley looked at Meng-Chi, who was standing beside Elder Yang. She was still dressed in a simple green robe, and her small face was bare of makeup. But who would have thought that this junior sister who had just entered the sect half a year ago had already become the wealthiest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley? The disciples were both envious and a little upset. In the past few days, many people had been laughing at Meng Qi behind her back, thinking that she had overestimated herself. He deliberately used those words to attract young Palace Master Chu's attention. Now that he really had spirit stones in his pocket, it was likely that the vast majority of disciples would not be able to accumulate wealth in their entire lives. And Burning Sky Palace had really given it. In comparison, Lu Qingran Shamai didn't seem to be enough. That young Palace Master Chu didn't seem to like her very much. Meng Qi did not know what her fellow sect members were thinking. She put away the Ling stones, and had a simple plan in her mind. The bracelet and storage bag could be exchanged for a better one. She could go to the Cloud Immortal Pavilion and buy some herbs she needed. Right now, she was still too weak. She should buy some life-saving talismans. If she used them like this, 6th grade Ling stones would not be enough. But this was it for now. She took the money and closed her eyes again. She stood next to Elder Yang with her head down. She hadn't finished reading the bamboo scroll. As to the elder of Burning Sky Palace and Chu Tianfeng, they probably didn't want to talk to her for now. Being able to stop a conversation was a skill to save one's life in troubled times. The elder of Burning Sky Palace was called Zun Yang, Great Circle Yuanying. He looked to be in his 40s. But in reality, he was 90 years old this year. He was one of the sect's elders who were very good at communicating, which was why he was sent to Cool Breeze Valley to assist Chu Tianfeng. Zun Yang watched as the disciple of Cool Breeze Valley counted the Ling stones and put them away. Then, she stood next to Yang Mingfeng obediently. He, who had always been good at dealing with people, was a little confused. He didn't know what to say for a long time. Originally, it was a joyous and harmonious atmosphere. Now it became very awkward. He watched as the bamboo scroll in Meng Qi's hand shone again. He knew that if he didn't speak, the other party would definitely continue reading. Zun Yang hurriedly coughed lightly. "Little friend Meng." Meng Qi looked up blankly. "Elder, is there something else?" Cough cough. Zun Yang could only cough again. "Martial nephew, thank you for saving me." He tried to pull the topic back on track. "Our sect is very grateful." "Elder, you're too polite." Meng Qi said lightly, "It's right and proper to take money to treat illnesses." She waved her hand. "Elder, you don't need to be grateful." The sect master of Cool Breeze Valley, the disciples of Cool Breeze Valley, was this junior martial sister stupid? How could a few spirit stones be more important than the gratitude of Burning Sky Palace? Lu Qingran, who was standing next to the sect master, was even paler. She looked at Meng Qi in disbelief. She didn't understand this junior martial sister at all. Chu Tianfeng had already embarrassed her twice for junior martial sister Meng Qi. He clearly treated junior martial sister Meng differently. Why did junior martial sister Meng push him away? Cough. Cough cough cough. Zun Yang could only cough again. In his opinion, a few spirit stones were nothing at all. He was an elder of Burning Sky Palace. It was one of his responsibilities to recruit talents for the sect. This girl who could cure the poison of a 5th grade demonic creature at the Qi refinement stage was a true talent. Although she was strange, she was a bit strange. But their Burning Sky Palace was rich. Thinking of this, Zun Yang coughed again. "Our sect has a special medicine hall, Meng Qi." These words sounded a bit familiar. She couldn't help but glance at Chu Tianfeng. Was this elder trying to recruit her? Moreover, Zun Yang continued, ordinary disciples of the medicine hall can receive 10 third-grade spirit stones as an allowance every day. If their position is promoted or their medical cultivation is improved, their daily spirit stones will also increase. 10 third-grade spirit stones a day couldn't compare to the 5 6th-grade spirit stones he paid to Meng Qi in one go. But many a little makes a mickle, and it was quite considerable. Zun Yang finished speaking and looked at Meng Qi expectantly. His gaze fell on the bamboo slips in Meng Qi's hand. "There's also a special medical library." He cleared his throat. Cough. The sect attaches great importance to the medicine hall. One of the 5 green peaks of Burning Sky Palace with the densest qi was given to the medicine hall. Everyone in the hall can freely enter and exit the library. Apart from a very small number of bamboo slips that require the palace master's permission to read, the vast majority can be read at will. Shushuba. Meng-Chi's heart stirred. Burning Sky Palace was one of the top 10 sects in the Eastern Territory. Coupled with thousands of years of accumulation, the library's richness was far from what Cool Breeze Valley could compare to. But she was a bit hesitant. Where was Chu Tianfeng? Young friend, there's no need to rush. Zun Yang was experienced and could see that Meng-Chi was moved. You can think about it carefully. Thank you, Elder. Meng-Chi cupped her hands and bowed. The expressions of the Cool Breeze Valley disciples became even more interesting. Everyone more or less knew that the sect would most likely be taken under Burning Sky Palace and seek protection. Apart from the sect master, most of the disciples were actually happy. Compared to the insignificant Cool Breeze Valley that no one cared about in the Eastern Territory, the identity of a Burning Sky Palace disciple was definitely much more useful. It was just that everyone thought that Lu Qingran, who was brought back by Chu Tianfeng, would be Burning Sky Palace's guest of honor. Before, everyone was happy to gossip about Meng-Chi behind her back, but in fact, it was more or less to curry favor with Lu Qingran. After all, everyone thought that Meng-Chi definitely couldn't cure Chu Tianfeng. That day, it was just to attract the attention of the future palace master of Burning Sky Palace. Who would have thought that the situation would change in a few days? Junior sister Meng-Chi really cured young palace master Chu, and the other party didn't even give junior sister Lu face for her. Moreover, this super powerful nascent soul elder of Burning Sky Palace actually personally invited junior sister Meng to join and even gave her such generous conditions. The disciples' gazes towards Meng-Chi became even more fervent. Zun Yang exchanged a few more polite words with the Cool Breeze Valley sect master. Everyone in the hall dispersed. Meng-Chi still followed Yang Mingfeng and walked towards the library. You want to go? Yang Mingfeng looked at the silent disciple with a faint smile in his eyes. I'm a little tempted, Meng-Chi said. A sect like Burning Sky Palace must have a very rich library. Yang Mingfeng nodded. Such an opportunity is very rare. He couldn't see through this disciple. When he thought of the other party asking for money in public, that nascent soul expert was completely stunned. The smile in Yang Mingfeng's eyes became even stronger. Besides, there are 10 third-grade spirit stones every day. Burning Sky Palace is really generous. He rarely joked with Meng-Chi. You can go. Meng-Chi's face turned red. She looked calm just now and was magnanimous and fearless in front of a nascent soul cultivator. Now, she was a little embarrassed. Do you know that other than Cloud Immortal Pavilion, there is also Sky Beyond in the 3000 worlds? Yang Mingfeng saw that Meng-Chi was shy and didn't say anything more. He walked forward with his hands behind his back and said, Sky Beyond is quite mysterious. No one knows where its main body is. However, there are many special items that even Cloud Immortal Pavilion can't find. As long as you have enough spirit stones, you can buy anything you want. I've heard of it. Meng-Chi's heart moved. However, it was said that Sky Beyond was very mysterious. Unless someone recommended it, it might not even be possible to find its entrance. She also couldn't enter before her rebirth. Yang Mingfeng gently clasped one hand, and a small jade slip fell into his palm. Take it. He handed the jade slip to Meng-Chi. Imprint your divine sense imprint. In the future, you can enter Sky Beyond through this jade slip. Thank you, Elder. But if you give it to me, in the future, it's okay. Yang Mingfeng waved his hand. I have another one. Meng-Chi blinked. Elder Yang was indeed an Aurus Core elder of Cool Breeze Valley. However, even the sect master had probably never entered a place like Sky Beyond. It was said that there were very few cultivators in the 3000 worlds who could enter Sky Beyond with this token. Most of them were above nascent soul. Meng-Chi lowered her head and looked at the warm jade slip in her hand. Then she looked at Elder Yang, who had already walked ahead. The other party's light robe was slow and he didn't look very tall. Meng-Chi had only heard of some of his experiences. She respected this elder who had the highest medical cultivation in the sect. Therefore, she liked to go to the library to ask Elder Yang for advice. It was like this before and after her rebirth. Unexpectedly, if there's anything you don't understand about the contents of the bamboo slip, You can come back to the library tomorrow. Yang Mingfeng had already walked away. Yes. Meng Qi bowed to his back view. She put away the jade slip thoughtfully and turned to walk back to her room. The door was still tightly shut. When Meng Qi pushed the door open and entered, the little white tiger, who was lying on the bed, suddenly looked up. Probably seeing that it was her who had entered, the little white tiger lay down lazily again. Little Qi. Meng Qi went forward and stroked the little white tiger comfortably for a while. Its soft fur brushed against her palm. The little white tiger, it seemed to have completely given up struggling. Its narrowed eyes were full of helplessness. I might know what poison was in the wound on your claw, Meng Qi said as she took out the bamboo slip again. I received the spirit stones from Chu Tianfeng today. I should be able to buy all the herbs I need. She smiled and pinched the little white tiger's ear again. She was still worried at first, but now, Meng Qi took out the jade slip that Elder Yang gave her. If she could enter the legendary sky beyond, it would be much easier to buy all kinds of rare herbs. The little white tiger was lying lazily on the bed and letting her stroke it. When he saw the jade slip, a hint of surprise flashed across his blue eyes. Sky beyond. He looked at Meng Qi and then at the jade slip. Cool Breeze Valley didn't seem so simple. Chapter 13. Meng Qi held the jade slip that recorded how to use it. She had heard of Sky Beyond before and knew that it was a very famous trading place among cultivators other than the Cloud Immortal Pavilion. It was said that one could buy everything they wanted here. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures, all kinds of magic treasures, herbs, poisons, weapons, it even included some spells. However, the Cloud Immortal Pavilion was in all 4 realms of the Trichilia Chasm. It was jointly managed by the top 10 sects in the East, West, South, and North realms. You could find a branch of the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in any city in the Trichilia Chasm, including the small towns at the foot of the Cool Breeze Valley. Sky Beyond existed in the legends of cultivators most of the time. Meng Qi had also heard of this place in her previous life. She also wanted to go in and take a look. It was the most mysterious and largest trading place among cultivators in the legends. However, she had never been able to enter. She closed her eyes and imprinted her spiritual consciousness on the jade slip according to the method recorded on the jade slip. This was equivalent to binding a magic treasure. From now on, this jade slip could only be used by Meng Qi. She opened her eyes and raised the jade slip high. On the jade slip that was the length of a finger, the 2 words Meng Qi were engraved. Meng Qi held the jade slip again and sent a bit of spiritual energy into it according to the introduction of the entry method that she had just seen. She only felt her eyes light up, and she suddenly appeared in an unfamiliar world. Meng Qi looked around and saw that the surrounding scenery was magnificent and winding. The green mountains were as black as ink, and the sky was filled with white clouds. Right in front of her, there was a very huge city. It was a magnificent city that Meng Qi had never seen before. Compared to Qin City, the largest city in the east border that she had seen before her rebirth, this city was even more vast and boundless. Meng Qi couldn't even see the end of it at a glance. Right above the city, there were 7 small islands floating. The clouds above blocked out the sun, making it impossible to see the situation on the island. Meng Qi glanced at the island curiously. Another figure suddenly appeared not far from her. Meng Qi looked over curiously. It was a male cultivator in his early 30s wearing a blue robe. He noticed Meng Qi's gaze and turned to nod at her. The other party had a handsome face and a tall figure. Even though he was wearing the plainest blue robe, he still had an otherworldly temperament. Fellow Daoist, is this your first time here? He could tell that Meng Qi was at a loss and curious. The male cultivator cupped his fist and said, Fellow Daoist, no matter what you want to buy or sell, you can go to the city ahead. There are special managers at the city gates who will give you a simple overview of the city. Thank you, fellow Daoist. Meng Qi hurriedly returned the gesture. She smiled embarrassedly. This is indeed my first time entering the Outland. It's all right. The male cultivator smiled. This place gathers cultivators from the 3,000 worlds and 4 great worlds. Since this is the first time fellow Daoist has entered, You might as well ask the city manager for an identity token. He paused for a moment before explaining, in the realm beyond heaven, everyone can create another name for themselves. Of course, you can also use your real name. Okay. Meng-Chi nodded. She was mildly amused. Such a grand city, a floating island in the air, and a nameplate that could hide one's identity, allowing for free trade. She felt that the idea of the person who created this place was very interesting. Fellow Daoist, if you have any more questions, you can ask me on the way. The male cultivator politely waved his hand forward. He was quite polite to Meng-Chi. Moreover, in this outland, it was just a wisp of spiritual consciousness entering, so it was not dangerous. Meng-Chi returned the gesture and walked side by side with him toward the huge city ahead. Fellow Daoist, may I ask where these 7 floating islands in the clouds are? Meng-Chi asked. The further they walked, the more they could feel the vastness of the city. Even the floating island in the air seemed to have become even more imposing. The 3 at the bottom. The male cultivator pointed to the 3 smallest floating islands that were closest to the ground and introduced, these are the 3 major auction houses of the Outland, Heaven, Earth, and Mystic. Heaven, Earth, and Mystic were higher realms after the 1st to 9th realms. For example, the path of medical cultivation was from 1st to 9th realms. Further up were Mystic, Earth, and Heaven. It was said that since the 3,000 worlds, medical cultivators who could reach the Mystic realm could be counted on one hand. Further up were Earth and Heaven, and they were even rarer. Almost all of them had the opportunity to break through the 9th realm and enter a new realm before the Mahayana cultivators ascended. He did not expect the owner of the Outland to be so domineering, directly naming the 3 auction houses with Heaven, Earth, and Mystic. The male cultivator seemed to have guessed Meng-Chi's thoughts, but he only smiled slightly and did not say much. Cultivators who had just entered the Outland could not feel the strength of the owner of this place at all. It was normal for them to be surprised. The 2 floating islands above, Yizichan said. The male cultivator seemed to be very familiar with this place. They are the places where the 10 major sects of the 3,000 worlds, the East Realm, the West Realm, the South Realm, and the North Realm. The items they sell are all concentrated there. Further up, Meng-Chi looked in the direction the male cultivator pointed. Only the 2 largest floating islands were left. The shorter one is the best restaurant in the realm beyond heaven. All the delicacies, and treasures in the world that you can think of. You can see them here. He loved reading books. As the male cultivator spoke, he pointed to the city on the ground. There are also delicacies from all over the world in the city, but it is said that they are far inferior to the Outland restaurant. He paused and said, "This restaurant belongs to the owner of this place." Meng-Chi, what a big deal. It was also domineering enough. Even the 10 major sects of the 4 realms of the 3,000 worlds were suppressed under their feet. As for the highest floating island, the male cultivator smiled regretfully. It is said that only the owner of this place can go up, and no one knows what is there. The Outland has been established for 300 years, and no one has been able to step foot in it. Meng-Chi looked at the highest floating island. In fact, that island was not big, and it was not directly above the city. It floated in the southwest direction, and the surroundings were also surrounded by clouds. It looked like an immortal island on the sea. "Thank you, fellow Daoist." Meng-Chi retracted his gaze and bowed to the male cultivator again. "You are welcome." As they spoke, the 2 of them had already walked out of the city gate. Standing here, Meng-Chi felt the vastness of the entire city. Other than that, the male cultivator said, there are countless mystic realms in the Outland. It is said that this place is the largest blessed land in the 3,000 worlds, and it has not been fully explored yet. If you can pass the assessment, you can join the exploration team and go to those mystic realms to search for treasures with others. He shook his head in shame. It's just that if you want to have enough power in the Outland, you need to be at least at the spirit severing stage to be able to split your spiritual sense and enter this place. I have just broken through the golden core stage and entered the nascent soul stage. I am far from qualified. Meng-Chi could not do it. She had heard that the Outland needed to be at least at the spirit severing stage to have great opportunities. It seemed that he was talking about those mystic realms. It seemed that the owner of the Outland was really too strong. To be able to turn this place into the largest free trading place between cultivators. To be able to build such a huge city and 7 floating islands here. The owner of this place should not be a single person, but a large sect. Meng Qi looked at the neat avenue inside the city gate. She knew that the 3,000 worlds were vast and wonderful. Even before her rebirth, she had only seen the smallest corner of this world. At this moment, she was standing in such a mysterious behemoth. Meng Qi could not help but sigh. No wonder this place was called the Outland. It was really another world outside the 3,000 worlds. If you don't have any other questions, I'll take my leave first, the male cultivator said to Meng Qi. Okay. Meng Qi bowed in return. Thank you for your guidance, fellow Daoist. There were city managers beside the city gate. Meng Qi followed the male cultivator's guidance and went forward to ask for a distribution map of the city. This city with countless shops was called the Outland City. The city was divided into 9 areas, including weapons, magic treasures, Daoist robes, all kinds of refining materials, spirit beasts, spells. Of course, there were also areas that specialized in selling medicines, poisons, and refined pills. In addition, the most central area was a place for free trading. If one did not know how to classify their things or had items that they did not recognize, they could directly trade with people in the free trading market. If one wanted to go to the 3 major auction houses of Heaven, Earth, and Mystic, one could directly contact the management of the Outland City. They would guide one to meet the people at the auction house. A special cultivator would determine the value of your things and then decide whether to accept the auction or which auction house to auction it at. Meng Qi followed the male cultivator's instructions and asked for an identity nameplate. Usually, that thing was useless, but the things bought in the Outland could not be directly taken out of here. With the nameplate, one could use this nameplate to collect the things one bought at the relay stations set up in the major cities of the Outland City. Spirit stones were also paid when one received the items. The Outland City would keep it a secret for you, and it would be very fast and safe. Meng Qi thought for a moment and wrote the words Little Qi on the nameplate. She now had several 6th grade spirit stones on her, and was definitely the richest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley. She did not know what she could buy here. Meng Qi determined the direction and decided to first take a look at the place that sold medicine. The city was very large, but there were countless teleportation arrays in every corner. Meng Qi asked the management staff and stepped into one of the arrays. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in the East City. Before she even started shopping, the fragrance of medicinal herbs assailed her nose. This was Meng Qi's favorite smell, and her mood improved a lot. This area basically sold medicinal herbs of various grades, poisons, and refined pills. Meng Qi thought of the records in the bamboo slip that Elder Yang gave her and casually stepped into one of the shops. Hello. There were no other customers in the shop, only a spirited shop assistant behind the counter. What do you need, fellow Daoist? That person hurriedly greeted her with a smile. Do you have jackdaw grass? Meng Qi asked. According to the records in the bamboo slip, jackdaw grass would leave a silver mark on the wound after being injured, causing the person to bleed non-stop. Meng Qi did not dare to conclude that Little White Tiger was poisoned by jackdaw grass just based on the description in the book. She had to buy one and verify it before she could be sure. Yes. The shop assistant quickly said, How many stalks do you need? How many spirit stones for one stalk? Meng Qi asked again. 26th grade spirit stones, the shop assistant said again. Meng Qi. According to the records in the bamboo slip, jackdaw grass was 6th grade. Meng Qi guessed that it would not be cheap. However, she did not expect that as the richest disciple in the Cool Breeze Valley, she could not even afford a stalk of grass. And this was only one stalk. If she wanted to detoxify Little Qi, it would probably cost at least a few hundred 6th grade spirit stones. She did not think that it was too expensive and did not want to buy it. It was just that at that moment. Meng Qi was very regretful that she had only accepted 10 times the spirit stones from Chu Tianfeng. Chapter 14. I'm sorry. She watched as the young cultivator in the shop neatly took out the box containing the jackdaw grass. Meng Qi quickly waved her hand. The price is too high. I can't afford it now. The man was stunned and looked at Meng Qi's calm expression. He couldn't help but laugh. It's okay. You can take a look at the appearance of the herbs in my shop. He opened the box enthusiastically. Inside the wooden box, there were about 10 stalks of jackdaw grass neatly placed. They were shaped like the feathers of a jackdaw. They were black and had many small fluffy hairs on them. In addition, if one looked carefully, they could see silver spots flashing on them occasionally. My sect is the Magical Herb Pavilion in the Northland. The man introduced, if you need more herbs that can only be found in the Northland in the future, you can come to my shop TSXSW. Lahi was a little proud. Many of our herbs are the best in the Northland in terms of appearance and efficacy. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. Thank you. You're welcome. The disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion carefully put away the box. He looked at Meng Qi. The young girl looked to be in her 20s. Her face was elegant. Her facial features were very delicate. Her eyebrows were high and her nose was straight. She had the rare heroic spirit and calmness of an ordinary girl. The Magical Herb Pavilion, which could open such a pharmacy in the realm beyond heaven, was one of the top medical cultivation sects in the Northland. The shop assistant couldn't help but be curious. Why are you looking for jackdaw grass? I've seen records of jackdaw grass in a book. Meng Qi definitely wouldn't tell a stranger about the little white tiger. So I want to buy one to study its medicinal properties. Phut. The shop assistant couldn't help but laugh. Although he was a shop assistant in his own sect's pharmacy in the realm beyond heaven, he was already a golden core cultivator in the sect. You really do have the demeanor of a member of my generation. He pondered for a moment. How about this? I can only charge you 18 6th-grade spirit stones for 1 stalk of jackdaw grass. If you have enough spirit stones, you can come to me again. Okay, thank you. Meng Qi nodded at him. Even if she had 18 6th-grade spirit stones, she was still far from being able to afford it. It wasn't even a fraction. She looked around. This pharmacy seemed to be the largest one nearby. It seemed that the shop assistant wasn't bragging. The Magical Herb Pavilion did sound powerful. Meng Qi estimated that the medicinal herbs that could be sold in the Outland would not be low-grade. The things here wouldn't be too cheap. Fellow Daoist, if you don't have enough spirit stones at the moment, we also accept barter, the shop assistant said. He had a good impression of this pillously beautiful girl who always looked calm and composed. Although the sky beyond heaven didn't specify the cultivation level of the cultivators who could enter, those who could enter this place wouldn't be too weak. As far as the disciples of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs knew, those who could enter were at least at the 5th or 6th stage of Jindan. For Xiuzhe of Lianqi and Zhuji, the changes in appearance caused by age were no different from normal people. After a Xiuzhe formed their core, the marks left on their appearance over time would fade. A Jindan Xiuzhe after 10 years, the change in appearance was about the same as a Lianqi and Zhuji Xiuzhe after 1 year. If a Xiuzhe wanted to keep their appearance unchanged, they had to at least reach the Great Circle of Yuanying. In other words, a Xiuzhe's appearance was about the same as when he entered the Jindan stage. Of course, if a Xiuzhe had limited talent and couldn't break through to the Yuanying stage, he would eventually grow old. The disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs looked at Meng Qi's young face, which clearly still had a bit of a girl's childishness. He thought to himself that a Xiuzhe who could successfully form her core at such a young age could be regarded as a heavenly genius. He didn't know which sect this disciple came from. They might not have many spirit stones on them, but they would have some valuable 5th-grade spirit stones that could be exchanged. Thinking of this, the disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs smiled more warmly. Fellow Daoist, if you don't need any magic arts, medicinal herbs, refined medicines, including fire-controlling talisman formations. Of course, magic weapons can be used to exchange for medicinal herbs. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She couldn't take out these things now. However, she had already mentally prepared herself that she might return empty-handed today. Thank you. She nodded to the disciple of the Pavilion of Spirit Herbs again, then turned and walked out of the pharmacy. Meng Qi didn't go to other shops. She estimated that the final result wouldn't be too different. She really didn't worry too much about spirit stones in the past. In her previous life, before leaving Cool Breeze Valley, she didn't need to spend too much money. Later, she met her master. Now that she thought about it, her medical skills and cultivation relied on refining large amounts of medicine and treating illnesses to improve. These all required a large number of medicinal herbs. And these medicinal herbs also required a large number of spirit stones to exchange. Meng Qi walked slowly on the flat and wide road in Sky Beyond Sky City. She had never worried about medicinal herbs and spirit stones before. It wasn't that she was rich, but that someone had solved these problems, allowing her to focus on cultivation without any scruples. Master, Meng Qi muttered silently in her heart. She was refreshed. Therefore, she would definitely cure little Qi. It didn't matter whether that white-robed man was her master or not. It didn't matter whether he was really the white tiger perfected Lord Chu Tianfeng spoke of, or whether he was of the same clan as Little White Tiger. As long as there was a little relationship, she wouldn't miss it. She would cure little Qi. Then, what she needed now was to earn enough spirit stones. One stalk of jackdaw grass required 26th grade spirit stones. More medicinal herbs were needed to detoxify little Qi. And this was only a superficial wound. Little Qi had more complicated internal injuries in her body. Meng Qi still couldn't figure out how she was injured. In addition to earning money, she had to improve her cultivation as soon as possible. The Qi refinement realm was still too weak, and her second-grade medical skills were far from enough. Meng Qi suddenly became energetic. She lowered her head and stroked her wrist. The bracelet and storage bag were still beside her. However, according to the manager of Sky Beyond Sky City, the things inside could only be displayed. If she really wanted to sell them, she needed the post house set up by Sky Beyond Sky in the Trichiliachasm to help deliver the goods. First-grade pills? That person looked at Meng Qi in surprise. I'm sorry, fellow Daoist, but the lowest level in Sky Beyond Sky's auction is fourth-grade pills. He smiled politely, but his rejection was very obvious. First-grade pills are easier to buy. Perhaps most people won't specially go to the auction house to spend time buying them. Can I trouble you to take me to see the fellow Daoist in charge of appraising pills? Meng Qi asked politely. That person hesitated. He looked at Meng Qi. The nameplate that she submitted showed that it was indeed her first time entering Sky Beyond Sky today. First-grade pills? He hadn't used or bought these things for a long time. However, since this little girl could enter Sky Beyond Sky, she was definitely not an ordinary person. The manager thought about it and nodded. All right. Thank you. Please come with me. That person led Meng Qi to the place where the teleportation formation was located. In addition to the teleportation formations that led to different areas of Sky Beyond Sky City, there were also a few slightly different colored ones. That person led Meng Qi into one of them. In a flash, the two of them appeared in a spacious courtyard. The courtyard was quite elegant, and every flower and tree was unique and ingenious. White clouds seemed to be beside them. A cool breeze blew on their faces, making them feel very comfortable. Were they on those floating islands? Meng Qi looked at the surrounding clouds and mist and silently sized up the surrounding scenery. She now admired the owner of Sky Beyond Sky to the extreme. If it wasn't for a person with great ambition and vision, it was impossible to create such a place. That manager led Meng Qi to one of the rooms and knocked on the door. Senior, a cultivator sent you a refined pill. Please appraise it. Please come in. A voice as warm as the spring breeze came from the room. Fellow Daoist, please come in. That person opened the door for Meng Qi and made a please gesture. However, he did not enter. As soon as Meng Qi entered, she saw a man in a blue robe sitting behind a desk. The room was filled with the fragrance of Chinese medicine. There were 2 rows of tall bookshelves on both sides of the wall. Countless bamboo slips and jade slips were scattered on the shelves. The blue-robed man looked to be in his early 30s. He was elegant and handsome. He held a bamboo slip in his hand and looked focused. When he heard the door open, he asked without looking up, "What's the grade of the pill?" First grade, Meng Qi said calmly. The manager who was guarding the door froze for a moment. The blue-robed man suddenly looked up and looked at Meng Qi in surprise. What grade? First grade. Meng Qi's expression was still calm. She took out a green pill from her bracelet storage bag and held it with one hand and handed it to the man. First grade? The blue-robed man laughed. He threw away the bamboo slip in his hand and looked at Meng Qi with a faint smile. Cloud Immortal Pavilion will sell first-grade medicine in any city in the Trichilia Chasm. The price is clearly marked and it is fair. Fellow Daoist, you can go there and set your own price according to the price of Cloud Immortal Pavilion. Okay. Meng Qi's expression was still calm. Of course, she could hear the faint sarcasm in the man's words. This breeze pill is a little different from the breeze pill of Cloud Immortal Pavilion. Meng Qi said calmly and placed the green pill with a faint medicinal fragrance in front of the man. The blue-robed man, he looked at Meng Qi and looked past her at the manager standing at the door. The blue-robed man, Xiong Linmo, was a cultivator in the Xian auction house who specialized in appraising medicinal herbs and pills. Although he was only a nascent soul cultivator, his medical skills had already broken through the 5th grade. Xiong Linmo was born in an ordinary medical cultivation sect. He was extremely talented in medical skills, and the sect could not help him improve. He was also unwilling to accept the recruitment of those large sects. He felt that he was entangled in worldly affairs and had no freedom. It just so happened that the owner of this place told him that there were countless bamboo slips related to medical cultivation here. He could use them and read them at will, except that he could not take them away. Every year, he only needed to stay on the floating island where the Xian auction house was located for half a year to be responsible for appraising medicinal herbs and pills. The rest of the time could be arranged freely. Xiong Linmo liked medical skills, and such a thing was really what he wanted. He had been here for almost 7 years and had even seen semi-finished 8th grade pills. This girl was the first one who dared to bring a first-grade pill here. Okay. Xiong Linmo reached out to take Meng Qi's pill. Let me see what's the difference. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion has already done the best for pills below 3rd grade. Even 4th grade, 5th grade, and even cultivators with higher medical skills can hardly surpass it. He could not see Meng Qi's cultivation, but he was an expert in medical cultivation. With a glance at this first-grade clear breeze pill, he could see that the person who made the pill was very low level, and his medical skills were at most 2nd grade. As Xiong Linmo spoke, he casually picked up the clear breeze pill. Yes, the formula is correct, and the medicinal properties are correct. It can cure poisons below 3rd grade, but its efficacy is reduced for 2nd grade poisons. 3rd grade poisons are almost useless. It is indeed a... The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and his gaze swept over Meng Qi. The girl's eyebrows were picturesque, and her elegance was unparalleled. Her expression was still indifferent and would not change because of the faint sarcasm in his words. Ha! Xiong Linmo chuckled and said word by word, 1st grade clear breeze pill. Can't you see anything else? Meng Qi asked. What else can I see? Xiong Linmo was about to laugh because of this girl. This girl could enter the Outland at such a young age, and she was so good-looking. However, this was the Outland, and people would not coax her just because she was good-looking. At least, Xiong Linmo would not. No matter how long I stare at it, it won't become a 9th grade. Heh! Halfway through his sentence, Xiong Linmo suddenly widened his eyes in surprise. This is... He looked at the clear breeze pill in his hand in disbelief, as if it really became a 9th grade pill in an instant. This is... Xiong Linmo was tongue-tied, and his face suddenly turned red. But soon, 2 rays of excitement shot out from his eyes. How did you do it? I can't tell you how I did it, but can this 1st grade clear breeze pill be auctioned? Meng Qi asked again. Yes. Xiong Linmo grabbed his nameplate and called out to the manager standing at the door. I'll buy it. As he spoke, he glanced at Meng Qi cautiously. 105th grade spirit stones, is that okay? Chapter 15. Meng Qi quickly calculated in her heart. Xiong Linmo's price was higher than she estimated. If it was 100 5th-grade spirit stones, if the other party bought 3 breeze pills, it would be 300 5th-grade spirit stones. It was still a long way from the jackdaw grass. Not to mention treating little Chi's injuries. Fellow Day Oist. Seeing that Meng Chi was silent, Xiong Linmo thought for a moment and said, I can sense that there seems to be a spell in this pill. Is it the breeze technique? Meng Chi nodded. Xiong Lin Mo slowly exhaled, trying to calm his racing heartbeat. When he first got it, he thought it was just an ordinary breeze pill. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spoken to Meng Chi in such a tone. However, he was a 4th-grade medical cultivator after all. It was not so easy to improve his medical skills. He needed to refine a lot of medicine and treat illnesses to accumulate experience. Since Xiong Linmo was a 4th-grade medical cultivator, he was naturally knowledgeable. Therefore, he soon discovered the reason why this girl dared to come here with a 1st-grade breeze pill. This seemingly ordinary grade 1 medicinal pill actually had a spell sealed within it. In other words, in addition to its own medicinal properties, this pill could also use the spell inside to treat illnesses. But what about the effect? Would the medicinal effect double on the original basis, or could it be raised to a higher level? Xiong Linmo was the most standard medical cultivator. When he saw such a novel thing, he immediately felt an itch in his heart. Moreover, it was not a big deal that a 1st-grade pill could be sealed with a low-level spell. If a high-grade pill could also be sealed with a high-level healing spell, it might bring about a revolution and shock in the entire medical cultivation world. The more Xiong Linmo thought about it, the more excited he became. He even felt a little thirsty as he looked at Meng Chi with sparkling eyes. This very good-looking girl in front of him was indeed beautiful. She could actually come up with such an ingenious idea. Seeing that Meng Chi was still silent, he quickly said, then, 200 5th-grade spirit stones? This was already a sky-high price for a 1st-grade pill. However, the value was not estimated like this. Xiong Linmo only hated that he had too few spirit stones. He thought for a moment and asked, or perhaps, fellow Daoist, you can tell me what you need. As long as it's within my power, I can satisfy you. Meng Chi hesitated. How many do you want? 5. Xiong Linmo carefully asked, is it convenient for you, fellow Daoist? He wondered if it would be convenient to refine such a special pill. If he wanted to use it for research, one was definitely not enough. Meng Chi was not surprised. When she brought the clear breeze pills over, she already knew that it was impossible to sell them in large quantities. 1st-grade medicinal pills were ultimately too low in level. Sword cultivators and Dharma cultivators from the outland would not be too interested in them. Medical Shio might buy it for research purposes, but a Shioja would not buy too much. Meng Chi thought for a moment. Do you have jackdaw grass? Jackdaw grass? Xiong Linmo thought for a moment. That's a herb unique to the north. I don't have it here. However, he had been in the Heavens Beyond City for a long time, so he reacted quickly. The few famous medical sects in the north all have shops in the Heavens Beyond City. Spirit Herb Pavilion, Rejuvenation Hall, Soaring Flower Valley. Fellow Daoist, you can go there and take a look. Meng Chi looked at Xiong Linmo and asked, may I ask if you've been to the east? She had never seen this person appear beside Lu Qingran. However, she was not Lu Qingran's follower. Who knew how many people she knew and how many people admired her? Meng Chi comforted herself. Moreover, she was really short of money now. The east. Xiong Linmo smiled slightly. I'm a Shioja from the south, but I've been longing for the east for a long time. Sooner or later, I'll travel there. A Shioja who looked quite young and elegant. Male. He would go to the east in the future. Then no problem, it's you. Meng Chi nodded silently in her heart. 2 6th-grade spirit stones for 1. With a flip of her fingers, she quickly took out 4 clear breeze pills from her bracelet storage bag. Xiong Linmo, this, he sucked in a cold breath. He had seen people raise the price, but he had never seen such a ruthless person. In the blink of an eye, the price had increased tenfold. This was a 1st-grade elixir after all. Xiong Linmo looked at Meng Chi in a daze. The other party's gaze was as clear as a mountain stream, clean. Her big black and white eyes were like cold stars, and her expression was calm. She didn't look like the kind of person who would extort others. Xiong Linmore didn't understand. He could afford 10 6th-grade spirit stones. However, based on his experience, the maximum price of this item would be 300 5th-stage spirit stones each. After all, it was a 1st-grade elixir. Fellow Daoist. Xiong Linmore thought for a moment and said, "Look, this is a 1st-grade clearbreeze pill. In the Cloud Immortal Pavilion, it's only 100 1st-grade spirit stones each." "I know." Meng Qi nodded. "But that place doesn't sell my clearbreeze pill." "Although that's the case, 2 6th-grade spirit stones are too," Meng Qi said calmly, "only I have this kind of clearbreeze pill. It's exclusive." "That's right, but, so I can name my own price." She continued, "You can choose not to buy it." As Meng Qi spoke, she turned her hand and was about to put away the clearbreeze pill. Xiong Linmore, okay. 10 6th-grade spirit stones it is." He hurriedly stopped Meng Qi and handed his nameplate to the manager of the Sky Beyond City. This beautiful girl was quite ruthless. "What should I do now?" Meng Qi turned her head and asked the manager. "First, I'll ask Mr. Xiong to imprint his mark on the 5 elixirs here. Then, you can go to the relay station of the Sky Beyond City in your city and hand over these 5 elixirs to our people there. After verifying Mr. Xiong's mark, they will give you the spirit stones he paid." Meng Qi nodded. This was quite interesting. If they only relied on the mark to identify things, the staff of the relay station of the Sky Beyond City would not know what they were selling. So lively. What are they doing? Just as she was silently admiring the interesting and safe way to buy and sell things in the Sky Beyond City, a lazy female voice suddenly came from outside the door. Meng Qi turned her head and saw a beautiful female cultivator standing at the door with a smile. The female cultivator looked a few years older than Meng Qi. She was wearing a blue robe, and the loose robe was tied by a narrow belt. Her waist was like a bee's and her back was like an ape's, making her look very slim. The female cultivator was also very good-looking. In fact, just looking at her facial features, she was far from being as exquisite and perfect as Meng Qi's senior sister Lu Qingran. But when she smiled, her eyes were beautiful. Coupled with the lingering laziness in her expression, she looked both elegant and charming. There was an indescribable charm that Meng Qi had never seen before. What are you doing here?" Xiong Linmore seemed to be a little afraid of her. He jumped up and took a big step back. "I'm working. Don't disturb me." The female cultivator chuckled, and a hint of a smile flashed through her clear eyes. She looked at Xiong Linmore as if she was looking at a younger brother. Obviously, the female cultivator looked much younger than Xiong Linmore. "Little sister." Her charming eyes fell on Meng Qi's face. "Are you new? You look so cute." "I'm here to sell medicine." Meng Qi answered honestly. At first glance, she didn't know the female cultivator's identity, but she had an inexplicable good impression of her. It was probably because the other party was also a very good-looking woman, but her beauty was completely different from Lu Qingran's. Meng Qi felt happy looking at her. "Oh!" The female cultivator's eyes flashed. "What kind of pill? Can I take a look?" "Of course." Meng Qi answered while handing over the Qingfeng pill in her hand. "Shui Jin Wen." Without waiting for the female cultivator to take the pill, Xiong Linmore blushed. "I've already ordered this. Have you already imprinted it?" Shui Jinwen's slender fingers carelessly combed her hair. "If not, shouldn't the highest bidder get it?" She glanced at Xiong Linmore with a smile and then turned her eyes back to Meng Qi. "You've been here for so long. Don't you know the rules of the auction house?" "Huh? 1st-grade Qingfeng pill?" This time, even the female cultivator named Shui Jinwen widened her eyes in surprise. She looked at Meng Qi in surprise and then looked down at the cyan pill. "It looks like..." "Huh?" Shui Jinwen sighed softly. What an ingenious idea. She closed her slender fingers. "Little sister, what price did he bid?" "I'll pay you double." Shui Jinwen. Xiong Linmore was angry. "Don't go too far. The highest bidder gets it." Shui Jinwen put away the pill with a chuckle. "Don't tell me you want to break the rules." Xiong Linmore snorted. However, he quickly said, This Qingfeng pill costs 2 6th-grade spirit stones each. Do you want to pay me double?
Oh.
Xue Jinwen raised her eyebrows. Why not? You. Xiong Linmore choked. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, then I'll bid 15 6th-grade spirit stones. I'll buy 3. Anyway, he wasn't going to buy them to eat. He was more careful and didn't care if he lost 2. Otherwise, Xue Jinwen would take them all away. No need, Meng Qi said lightly. 2 6th-grade spirit stones was a high enough price. She took out 5 more pills from her bracelet storage bag and handed them to Xiong Linmore. It's the same price as before. A total of 10 6th-grade spirit stones. Xiong Linmore was stunned. Previously, he had thought that this girl was greedy for money and was very ruthless in raising the price. With Xue Jinwen, a girl who never cared about spirit stones, stirring up trouble, he would probably have to pay a lot of money today. However, he was unwilling to give up just like that. He didn't expect this girl to not take advantage of the situation and raise the price. Xiong Linmore was a little confused as he put his own mark on the 5 pills that Meng Qi handed over. When he returned them to her, he couldn't help but look up at her. The girl's face was elegant and exquisite, and her nose was sharp. Her eyes were as clear as the stars in the sky. What a strange girl. Xiong Linmore sighed in his heart. What kind of sect could produce such a young disciple with such a calm and collected temperament? Xue Jinwen also smiled. Then I'll also, sister, 200 5th-grade spirit stones each, Meng Qi said. Phut. Xue Jinwen couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're very interesting. She couldn't help but gently stroke Meng Qi's white and tender cheeks with her slender fingers. Thank you, little girl. She put her own mark on the pills in her hand and threw the nameplate to the manager. If you have any problems in the heavens beyond Heaven City in the future, you can come to me at any time. By the way, Xue Jinwen thought for a moment and said, if you come to the West World in the future, you can also come to me. Elder sister likes such a clever, intelligent, sensible and sweet little sister the most. She glanced at Meng Qi and reminded her, little girl, this is your first time in the heavens beyond heaven, right? Don't waste too much time. It's time to leave. Okay. Meng Qi was in a good mood. Then I'll take my leave first. She nodded at Xue Jinwen and Xiong Linmore. Under the guidance of the manager, she left the small courtyard and walked toward the teleportation array again. You're really lucky to have caught fellow Daoist Xue's attention. The manager shook his head with a smile. If I didn't know that today is your first time in the heavens beyond Heaven City, I would have thought that you knew fellow Daoist Xue's identity in advance. Huh. Meng Qi was calculating her gains today and looked up in surprise. This fellow Daoist Xue is, the next time you have a chance to meet her, you can ask her yourself. The man said, since she promised you that you can go to the West World to find her, she probably won't hide her identity from you. And as for fellow Daoist Xue, there should be many people in the 3,000 worlds who know her. Xue Jinwen, Xue. Meng Qi's heart suddenly moved. She knew that there was a large medical cultivation sect in the West World that could be ranked in the top 3 medical cultivation sects in the 3,000 worlds. The sect master there was surnamed Xue. Okay. She nodded and smiled at the manager. Thank you, fellow Daoist. Then Meng Qi restrained her divine sense according to the introduction she had read before. In the room where Meng Qi lived alone in the Cool Breeze Valley, she slowly opened her eyes and the light of the jade slip in her hand gradually dimmed. She lowered her head and looked at the warm and small jade slip in her palm. She didn't expect the legendary heavens beyond heaven to be so powerful. Moreover, it was quite interesting. Meng Qi put away the jade slip and turned her head to see the little white tiger lying lazily beside her. It seemed to be sleeping. Its left front paw stretched out and gently rested on her body. Its furry little paw looked exceptionally cute. It was white and looked like a cloud. Meng Qi thought that she was almost able to buy the jackdaw grass and the elixir pills were sold smoothly. She was in a very good mood. She reached out and rubbed Little Qi's head and scratched his chin. Little Qi, I found the jackdaw grass. I should be able to get it soon. Meng Qi asked, are you happy? After saying that, she jumped up and walked out of the door. I'm going down the mountain. Little Qi, You'd better stay in the room obediently. She was prepared to go to the post house in heavens beyond heaven to complete the transaction and get the spirit stones. The door opened with a creak. Outside the door, the young man in black suddenly turned around. You. Chu Tianfeng looked at Meng Qi. You're finally out. Oh. Meng Qi's good mood faded a lot when she saw him. However, she quickly remembered. Young Palace Master Chu. Yes. Chu Tianfeng asked, what's the matter? He had waited at the door for a long time. He knew that Meng Qi was going to treat the little white tiger and would definitely need help recently. 1200 KSW. Nati's cultivation had recovered, so he was definitely her best assistant now. Chu Tianfeng even felt a little lucky. He could meet Meng Qi so early, but she didn't have. Meng Qi felt that she couldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. Xiong Linmo still didn't know if he would really meet Lu Qingran, but this Chu Tianfeng was proven to be senior sister Lu's subordinate. She looked up and met Chu Tianfeng's shining and expectant eyes. She slowly spoke. I sold 5 clear breeze pills to someone. 2 6th-grade spirit stones each. Meng Qi said, I used 15 pills to detoxify your poison. She reminded Chu Tianfeng. Chapter 16. Chu Tianfeng was stunned for a moment. His face turned from white to red, and then slowly back to white. He slowly lowered his head. He counted out 36th-grade spirit stones from the new storage bag that the sect elder had given him and handed them to Meng Qi. 15 pills, a total of 30 spirit stones. The young man's long back was straight, his long eyelashes were drooping, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. In his open palm, there were 30 neatly stacked spirit stones. They were sparkling and very dazzling. Meng Qi was stunned. She originally thought that Chu Tianfeng would be so angry that he would turn around and leave. She really didn't have the idea of asking him to pay later. After all, this was only a first-grade breeze pill. For medical cultivators like Linmo and Xue Jinwen, it could be sold at a high price because the refining method was very special. They were willing to pay 2 6th-grade spirit stones or even higher to buy it because they wanted to study the refining method. Of course, if they could really deduce the refining method from a single pill, Meng Qi would sincerely admire them. That was really not an easy task. Back then, she and her teacher had also tried for nearly half a year and thousands of talisman arrays before they finally succeeded. If it was the refining method, then it would not be a matter of a few 6th-grade spirit stones. That was probably a secret that a medical cultivator sect was willing to exchange with all the power of the sect. Both Linmo and Xue Jinwen were medical cultivators, so of course they knew. Therefore, they didn't even ask about the refining method. They just bought the pills and went back to study it themselves. However, they didn't need to use more than 10 pills at all. It was precisely because of this that for Linmo, spending a few 6th-grade spirit stones to buy medicine was nothing at all. He probably also knew that if this pill was really put up for auction, there would definitely be sects that would be willing to buy it back at a higher price. If he wanted to participate in the auction, he wouldn't be able to compete. However, it was different for Chu Tianfeng. For him, this thing was an antidote. Even if it was better than an ordinary first-grade breeze pill, it was not so good that it was worth 1,000 times the price to buy it. Fanchuan Kanshu. Meng Qi originally thought that after the proud young palace master Chu heard his words, he would fly into a rage and leave in disdain. Now that she had a way to make money, she didn't need to catch Chu Tianfeng and harvest its wool. She said this because she wanted to drive Chu Tianfeng away so that he wouldn't appear in front of her all the time. When senior marshal sister Lu Qingran found out, she would be angry. Perhaps the heavenly Tao would punish him for his own daughter. And what was wrong with this young palace master Chu? In her previous life, she had saved his life. She didn't mention anything about money, and he acted as if he didn't know about it at all. Later, Meng Qi was locked up for 3 months. He did not even come to see her, let alone speak up for her and let her out. Otherwise, Meng Qi could have at least asked him to bring him some medicinal herbs and spells, so that he wouldn't have wasted 3 months. This time, she took so much money and raised the price in front of everyone, but the other party insisted on sticking to her. She couldn't even chase them away. As expected, Meng Qi thought of the words of a female cultivator she once met. People, especially men, were all cheap. They never knew how to cherish things that they could easily get without putting in the slightest effort. Meng Qi thought for a while and reached out to take the spirit stones. She looked at Chu Tianfeng's expression without blinking, hoping that he would fly into a rage and leave. Young Palace Master Chu lowered his eyes and stood obediently in the same place. His expression was normal, and no one could tell that he was unhappy. Meng Qi, she thought for a while and said seriously, from now on, we don't owe each other anything. I don't have much fortune, and I just want to focus on cultivation. I don't want to be entangled with too much karma. It's best that you and I are just acquaintances from now on. Of course, young Palace Master Chu can also pretend that you don't know me at all. That would be the most appreciated. You. Chu Tianfeng suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Meng Qi. Also, Meng Qi added, don't tell anyone about the little white tiger. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Meng Qi bowed to him. After she finished speaking, she walked out of the sect without looking back. Previously, because she was anxious to save little Qi, she had almost been tricked by this Chu Tianfeng. What was the Great Soul Oath? After the Great Soul Oath was made, the person who made the oath could not go against the words of the person he swore to give his soul to. Then what Meng Qi said just now, that she hoped that they would just be acquaintances when they met, was also her request. If Chu Tianfeng couldn't do it, then he would be intolerable to heaven and earth. With the elder of Burning Sky Palace holding the fort and Chu Tianfeng, the young palace master, there, the following crisis would definitely not threaten the safety of Cool Breeze Valley and the people of Cool Breeze Town at the foot of the mountain. When Meng Qi arrived at Cool Breeze Town, it was still bustling with people, no different from usual. There were not many people in Cool Breeze Town, and the city was also very small. After all, Cool Breeze Valley was only a very small sect, the kind that was not even ranked in the Eastland. The people living in the town were all ordinary people who could not cultivate at all. As soon as they saw Meng Qi, they immediately surrounded her and greeted her warmly. Little Dr. Meng is here. Hello, little Dr. Meng. Little Dr. Meng, you came at the right time. The oranges in my family's orchard have just come out this year, and the frost on the fruits hasn't been wiped off yet. I'll go back and get some for you to try. My family's honey pomelo this year is also very sweet and juicy. It's best for girls to eat. I'll go home and get some too. Hello, Sister Meng. These ordinary people in Cool Breeze Town had no interaction with Senior Lu Qingran. In order to practice her medical skills, Meng Qi often came here to treat people's illnesses. As long as the root cause of the illness of ordinary people was found, it was not troublesome to treat it. For medical cultivators with higher medical skills, it did not have much meaning. However, people who ate the 5 grains would get sick. Although Cool Breeze Town was only a small town, there were also many kinds of people, and everyone's illnesses were different. While Meng Qi was treating them, she also had a lot of insights. She thought of Elder Yang. He was clearly a 4th-grade medical expert, but he could still treat ordinary people. He even made a great wish to travel all over the 3,000 worlds and treat all of them. Among medical cultivators, there were many people who were obsessed with medical skills. Meng Qi had seen more in the past. She greeted the residents of Cool Breeze Town as she walked towards the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in the center of the town. When she reached there, Meng Qi's bracelet storage bag was already filled with many fresh fruits. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion claimed to have branches in all the towns in the 3,000 worlds, regardless of size. Similar to the Heavens Beyond Heaven, if you wanted to buy something that was not available here, after making a reservation, they would quickly send it to the branch in your city. As long as you came to get it at the appointed time, it would be fine. Meng Qi had never seriously considered making money before. The pills she refined were mainly practical. Now, to treat little Qi's injuries, just the external injuries alone required too many spirit stones. She thought about it and bought more than 10 kinds of 1st-grade and 2nd-grade medicinal materials at the Cloud Immortal Pavilion in one go. Then, Meng Qi went to the courier station and sent them the Cool Breeze pills with Shui Jin Wen and Xiong Lin Mo's spiritual sense imprint. This was the first time she had been to the courier station of the Heavens Beyond Heaven. From the outside, it looked no different from an ordinary courier station. However, after the staff inside checked the spiritual sense imprint and took away the wooden box containing the pills, he quickly gave the spirit stones to Meng-Chi. "Excuse me, how long does it usually take for this thing to be delivered to the other party?" Meng-Chi asked. "The heavens beyond heaven has its own teleportation array. It only takes 9 days to send it from here to the southern border city at the furthest southern border." The staff of the heavens beyond heaven said politely. They did not need to check the items inside. As long as the spiritual sense imprint was correct, they would pay the spirit stones. "Thank you." Meng-Chi nodded to the other party. After doing these things, she returned to the Cool Breeze Valley. Little Chi was still lying lazily on the bed, and Chu Tianfeng had long disappeared. Meng-Chi stroked Little Chi again. Cultivators did not need to sleep every day, but she was still in the Chi refinement stage, so she still had to sleep for 4 hours every day. "Little Chi." Meng-Chi pushed Little White Tiger. "Sleep a little inside." It had been lying on her bamboo bed for so long that it almost took it for granted and treated it as its own territory. At this time, its blue eyes widened as it watched Meng-Chi take off her green robe, throw it on a chair, and then sleep for 4 hours, then get up to refine medicine. Now that she had 47 6th-grade spirit stones, she could buy jackdaw grass. Then she would sell the refined medicine. Next, in a daze, Meng-Chi closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. The fluffy little white tiger was lying stiffly on the inner half of the bed that was leaning against the wall. Meng-Chi's bamboo bed was very narrow to begin with, and she usually slept on her own. Although little white tiger was still very small, it was not very big when it lay down. However, it would still inevitably touch Meng-Chi. He froze for a long while. Seeing that Meng-Chi's breathing had become long, he finally regained his senses and slowly moved inwards. Soft white fur brushed against Meng-Chi's arm. Her loose white inner garment had already been lifted, revealing her fair and slender arm. Little white tiger lowered its head and followed the other party's arm down. Then, its blue eyes looked at Meng-Chi's slender fingers. It shrank inwards again, as if it wanted to press its entire body against the wall. Soft fur brushed against Meng-Chi's arm again. "Stop fooling around," she mumbled. Then, she stretched out her arm and scooped little white tiger into her arms. "Be good and sleep." Little white tiger. A faint medicinal fragrance enveloped him from all directions. It was very comfortable. Little white tiger, who had always hated other people invading its territory, could not develop any thoughts of repulsion. The wound on its claws was still bleeding slowly. Although it was very little, when it accumulated, it still dyed Meng-Chi's pure white inner garment sleeves red. That spot of red slowly turned from bright red to dark red. The faint smell of blood was suppressed by the medicinal fragrance on the other party's body. Little white tiger froze for a while and gradually relaxed. It had never slept on the same bed with someone like this before. No one had ever dared to hug it to sleep in such a domineering manner. However, perhaps because it was too injured, its eyelids slowly became heavy. Amidst Meng-Chi's long breaths, little white tiger also slowly closed its eyes. A human and a tiger, as if it was a matter of course, but also as if they had known each other for a long time and were extremely familiar with each other. They snuggled together like this. It was a dreamless night and they slept well until dawn. Chapter 17. When Meng-Chi woke up, she felt warm all over. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw little Chi sleeping obediently by her side. The furry little head was just within reach of her hand. One of its little paws was gently placed on her arm. He looked as if he was hugging her arm to seek comfort. "Little cutie." Meng-Chi couldn't help but rub little white tiger's head. Its semicircular ears shook slightly, but it didn't open its eyes. Its other paw was still bleeding slightly. After being treated by Meng-Chi yesterday, the bleeding was less and slower. After a night, there was still a large dark red bloodstain on her sleeve. Meng-Chi sighed softly. This was probably the most painful moment for medical practitioners. When they saw the person they wanted to save but couldn't immediately get better. The sleepiness in her eyes was swept away and she instantly became energetic. Meng-Chi reached out and gently held little Chi's paw, then slowly moved to the bed. The little guy was so badly injured and frightened. It must be very tired. She got off the bed lightly and gently rubbed little Chi's furry little head. Don't worry, Meng Chi said softly. She would definitely cure it. She casually made a small hand seal and summoned a small stream of mountain spring water to wash up. Meng Chi was still in the Chi refinement stage and still had to eat. After a simple breakfast, she took out all the herbs she bought yesterday and placed them on the table. To most of the Cool Breeze Valley disciples, more than 40 6th-grade spirit stones were already a fortune that they couldn't accumulate for many years. But a stalk of jackdaw grass cost 18 6th-grade spirit stones. If she wanted to cure little Chi, she might not even hear the sound of water if she threw in such a small amount of spirit stones. She had to think of a way to earn more money. The herbs Meng Chi bought yesterday were all used to refine the 2nd-grade Dark North pill. This pill was also a type of pill that could recover spirit energy. The lowest grade 1st-grade Dark North Dan could allow a Chi Lianqi Shouja to recover a quarter of their Ling energy in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. A 2nd-grade Dark North Dan could allow a Zhuji Shouja to recover 1/4 of their Ling energy in 15 minutes. 3rd grade, it could be used by Jindan. At 9th grade, even Mahayana Shouja could use it. Simply put, the higher the grade of the Dark North Dan, the more useful it was for the Shouja with higher cultivation. Because the Dark North pill was only a 2nd-grade pill, many medical cultivators could refine it. In addition, the medicinal materials used were not exotic flowers or herbs, so the price was considered cheap. Therefore, in the Trichilia Chasm, this was one of the most common and commonly used pills to recover spiritual energy. Meng Chi took out his small bronze cauldron. She placed the small cauldron on the table and drew a talisman array around it. In addition to the fire talisman array he used to refine medicine, Meng Chi also drew 2 different talisman arrays around the small cauldron. Small Book Pavilion. The 3 glyph formations formed a triangular cauldron with the small bronze cauldron in the center. She took out 3 pieces of 3rd-grade Ling stones from her storage bag and placed them in the center of the 3 talisman arrays. Then she started to process the medicinal materials simply and threw them all into the small cauldron. Only by looking at the pills that had been successfully refined, unless one was really a genius, it would be difficult to guess how Meng Chi had attached the incantation to these pills. The most important things were these 3 talisman arrays. The fire talisman array could cause the temperature of the flame to be high enough to refine the medicinal materials. The other 2 talisman arrays, one could cause the Dan to be able to hold spells. The other could seal spells into the Dan. The 3 talisman arrays combined was the key to being able to attach spells to the Dan. This was why Meng Chi and her master had spent the better part of a year trying countless methods, talisman arrays, medicinal materials. In the end, they finally found a method. As she thought back, she silently paid attention to the Dan in the small cauldron. The medicinal energy started to spread. Meng Chi casually formed a Dark North spell and sealed it into the Dan that was about to be refined. It was a pity that her cultivation was still too low. Otherwise, she could have made a higher grade Dark North Dan. But now, the small bronze cauldron trembled slightly. 3 Dan that were as blue as the sea lay quietly inside. Meng Chi took it out and looked at it. The 2nd-grade Dark North Dan was sealed with the Dark North spell. Originally, it would take 15 minutes for a foundational cultivator to recover a quarter of their spirit energy. But now, it could instantly recover a quarter of spirit energy. In the next 15 minutes, it could continue to recover an additional quarter of spirit energy. Even though it was only 2nd grade, Meng Chi believed that there would be sects willing to buy it. The 3,000 worlds had never been a peaceful world. Except for the Mo realm that was eyeing the barrier covetously and would occasionally invade. It was said that the Yarrow realm had also been restless in the past 100 years. And where there were people, internal strife was always the eternal theme. The 3,000 worlds were divided into 4 great worlds. The 4 great worlds, East, West, South, and North, were never absolutely peaceful. Conflicts between large sects also occurred occasionally. Large sects would annex small sects, and there were also conflicts between small sects. Even a small sect like Cool Breeze Valley, which was so small that it was almost ignored, would have other small sects come to provoke them and try to annex them. Therefore, Elixirs like the Dark North Dan had always been very popular. The Cloud Immortal Pavilion sold them all year round. Cultivators often had dozens of them with them. Meng Qi also prepared them. As she put the 3 Dark North Dan into a porcelain bottle, she continued to process the herbs and throw them into the small cauldron. Making elixirs also consumed a lot of spirit energy. Meng Qi's cultivation was really too low. After making 10 or so pills, she had to stop and rest for a while. She was too focused on making elixirs and didn't notice that when she took out the small bronze cauldron, little Qi had already opened its eyes. The little white tiger had been lying on the bed without moving, just looking at Meng Qi with its blue eyes. When it saw the talisman formation drawn on the table, a faint light flashed across little Qi's eyes. There might be similar talisman formations in the 3,000 worlds that could be replaced. But the way this talisman formation was drawn was clearly unique to the Yarrow realm. The human, Yarrow, and Mo realms recognized that the best weapon refiner came from the Yarrow realm. Many of the artifacts and talismans in the 3,000 worlds were made by ancient Yarrow Xiu. Because of this, the Yarrow realm had the most complete and exquisite talisman formation inheritance. Little Qi's eyes narrowed slightly, and its gaze flashed. His attention quickly turned from the table to Meng Qi's slender figure. The young girl wearing a green robe was definitely in the stage of Qi Lianqi, the lowest level of the cultivators in the 3,000 worlds. But when she made her move, that beautiful talisman formation, that exquisite mind for making elixirs, even he was slightly amazed. Soon, the last few Dark North Dan were made. Meng Qi put them all away with satisfaction. She threw the almost full porcelain bottle into her bracelet storage bag, and then turned to look at little Qi. "You're awake." She probably knew that the other was a royal among the Sky Yarrow. Meng Qi had always treated the little white tiger as an equal when she talked to it. Little Qi widened his eyes and looked at Meng Qi's small and exquisite chin. He had woken up once at night and was held in Meng Qi's bossy arms. It was very warm. At that time, he clearly wanted to break free of the other's arms, but the warm and faint medicinal fragrance seemed to have a soothing effect. Little white tiger quickly fell asleep again. His blue eyes finally met Meng Qi's bright and clear eyes. "Do you want to eat something?" Meng Qi asked. She walked back to the bed and looked at the other party's fluffy little head. She wanted to touch it. Just a touch. She raised her hand and couldn't help but rub little Qi's head a few times. Cough cough. Meng Qi said, "I didn't have time to ask yesterday. Do you want to eat something?" "Of course not." Little white tiger wanted to complain. He was a royal of the Sky Yarrow, and his cultivation was close to perfected golden core from birth. Moreover, he was already. Her slightly cold and slender fingers were no longer satisfied with the other party's fluffy little head. Meng Qi pinched little Qi's ear gently. Little white tiger's originally stiff body suddenly trembled slightly. Before he could react, Meng Qi's hand had already slid down his back, and she finally grabbed his tail and stroked it twice. "Little Qi." Meng Qi, "Oh, so soft. So nice." As she thought about it, she pinched little Qi's ear again. Meng Qi took out a few oranges and pomelos from her storage bag. These were all given to her by the residents of Fresh Breeze Town yesterday. Little Qi glanced at them and turned his head away in disdain. "You're not eating?" Meng Qi asked patiently. "Then do you want to eat chicken?" Little Qi, he continued to turn his head away and didn't look at Meng Qi. Then, Meng Qi thought for a moment. "You don't need to eat." As she spoke, she lowered her head and looked at little Qi closer. Her elegant face moved closer to little Qi. It was as if he could touch Meng Qi's face if he moved. Or rather, the other party's soft lips that also carried a faint medicinal fragrance. Chapter 18. Meng Qi's eyelashes were very long. As they got closer, the little white tiger could clearly see its own furry shadow in the other party's eyes. He even felt that his own breath could stir the other party's eyelashes. "It seems." Meng Qi's eyes were focused as she murmured, "The other injuries in the body don't seem to have worsened." She breathed a sigh of relief, stood up straight again, and rubbed little Qi's head twice. It was so nice to touch. Meng Qi couldn't help but rub her fingers gently. She looked at little 7. The little white tiger was still lying on the bed in a daze, looking dazed. She thought of the scene she saw on the light screen Chu Tianfeng gave her. If the white-robed man who looked like her master was really perfected Lord White Tiger, then they were really cute when they were young. After curing little Chi, he left. Should she really raise a white tiger as a spirit beast? Meng Qi thought seriously. Okay. She rubbed little white tiger's head again, then took out a new ball of ointment and applied it to the wound on little Chi's paw. Wu Kuox. Komshi waited for the wound to completely absorb the ointment. In the end, the green ointment became almost transparent. Then she put little white tiger's paw back on the bamboo bed. Although it can't completely stop the bleeding, it's still a little useful. Meng Qi gently rubbed little Chi's furry wrist. I'm going to exchange for jackdaw grass today. If I have the chance, I'll also buy some medicinal materials that can be used. As she spoke, she bent down slightly and looked into little white tiger's blue eyes. Little white tiger had already put away the Big Dipper shadow in its eyes. It looked similar to the cubs of ordinary white tigers. It was just that its eyes were slightly lighter. Have a good rest. After Meng Qi finished speaking, she took out some medicinal powder and drew a few simple talisman arrays in the room. After she was done, she held the jade slip of the outer sky again and entered it. It was the second time that Meng Qi came to this mysterious and grand place, so she was much more familiar with it. She went straight to the shop of the Magical Herb Pavilion. Seeing her, the disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion greeted her warmly. Do you need jackdaw grass? Yes. Meng Qi took out his nameplate. I want one. All right. The disciple of the Magical Herb Pavilion nodded. He took out another box and put a stalk of jackdaw grass in it. Then he asked Meng Qi to imprint her spiritual awareness on it. When can I get it? Meng Qi asked. She silently watched him do all this. She had already sold the items yesterday, and today she was here to buy them herself. She still found it a little novel. It should be around 2 to 3 days. The disciple said, someone from the Pavilion of Magical Herbs will deliver the jackdaw grass to the post house in the human realm upon heavens. You'll be notified by the post house when the time comes. Just go and get it. Thank you. Meng Qi estimated that the divine sense imprint he left behind could also be used to transmit messages. The people at Heavens Beyond Relay Station probably relied on this method to contact buyers. After settling this matter, she went to look for the manager of Beyond Sky who had brought her to see Xiong Linmore yesterday. Fellow Day Oist. That person obviously remembered her. When he saw Meng Qi, he immediately greeted her with a smile. What's the matter today? Another medicinal pill. Meng Qi smiled at him. All right. The person didn't even ask and led her to the teleportation array. Third young lady Xue has spoken. If fellow Daoist comes again in the future, you can take her directly to see her if you need anything. Xue Jinwen. Third young lady Xue specially sent a message to all the managers yesterday. The next time fellow Daoist comes to the human realm upon heavens, you can find anyone to take you to see her. All right. The person stopped talking. They arrived at the teleportation array soon. Meng Qi only felt a flash in front of her eyes, and then she appeared in a similar courtyard that she had been to yesterday. However, this should be where Xue Jinwen lived. The courtyard alone was much larger. Flowers, trees, and plants. As soon as Meng Qi stepped in, the first thing she smelled was the fragrance of bamboo leaves. She turned her head to the left, where a small patch of green bamboo was planted. Stone tables and stone stools were placed under the bamboo leaves, looking very elegant. The house was also larger than Xiong Linmore's residence. Seeing Meng Qi look around curiously, the manager who led her to the human realm upon heavens hurriedly explained, the houses and courtyards here all belong to the human realm upon heavens. It's just that the higher the level of the appraiser, the better the house you can choose. He smiled. When you reach the heaven-class auction house, the residence will be as beautiful as a garden. Yes. Meng Qi nodded. Is this a rule set by the master of the human realm upon heavens? Yes. The person said, Master once said that the more capable you are, the more you should get. Yes. Meng Qi nodded. That's why many cultivators from the 3,000 worlds and the 4 great realms are willing to come here. Yes. Meng Qi nodded again. She was actually more curious. Did the people who worked here use jade slips like her to enter? Or did they know where the human realm upon heavens was originally located? However, she didn't continue to ask. She just watched as the manager went forward and knocked on Xue Jinwen's door. "Please come in." A pleasant female voice, with a hint of laziness, came from the other side of the door. The manager opened the door and said with a smile, "Third young lady Xue, the fellow Daoist from yesterday is here again." "Oh." The voice that sounded lazy just now suddenly became energetic. Before Meng Qi could react, Xue Jinwen, who was wearing a red robe, had already appeared in front of Meng Qi. "Elder sister, you're finally here. Yesterday's first-grade clear breeze pill. TSK. Xue Jinwen sighed as she looked up and down at Meng Qi. Her long raven hair was tied up in a lazy bun and hung slanted over her shoulders. Her originally charming and exquisite eyes contained a faint smile. "Your thoughts are really exquisite." Meng Qi smiled slightly. She wasn't surprised that Xue Jinwen had already obtained the first-grade clear breeze pill. If it were her, she couldn't wait to see the true appearance of such a pill. If she really was a disciple of the large medical cultivation sect in the Western Land, there were many ways to get the pill as quickly as possible. Moreover, she was still working for the human realm upon heavens at the Xian auction house. She definitely had other ways. "You're here again today. Is there something else? I heard from that guy Lin Mo that you want jackdaw grass. There are more of this stuff in the Northern Land. There are several medical cultivation sects in the Northern Land in the heavens upon heavens. You should be able to buy it." "I've already bought it," Meng Qi said. "I saw records of jackdaw grass in a book and wanted to find it to study." Xue Jinwen's smile didn't fade. "Then you're here again today for—" Meng Qi wiped her slender hand and took out a porcelain bottle from her bracelet storage bag. It contained the Dark North pill that she had just refined today. Xue Jinwen reached out and took it. "Dark North pill?" She was a little surprised. Second-grade Dark North pill." Xue Jinwen didn't mind that the pill's level was low. Dark North pill was a medicine that could be used from the Qi refinement stage to the Mahayana stage. Many medical cultivators knew how to refine it. But generally, everyone would refine the Dark North pill according to their own grade. After all, the efficacy of this thing was related to its level. Second-grade Dark North pill could be used by those in the foundation establishment stage. Xue Jinwen couldn't remember how long it had been since she had come into contact with such a low-level pill. Those who could enter the human realm upon heavens wouldn't have a low cultivation level. She looked at the blue pill in her palm that was half like seawater and then looked at Meng Qi. This girl, yesterday, she had a first-grade breeze pill, and today, she had a second-grade Dark North pill. It was as if she was a Qi refinement or foundation establishment cultivator. Xue Jinwen was amused by herself. How could someone who could enter the human realm upon heavens be a Qi refinement cultivator? It was rare to see a golden core cultivator. This Dark North pill. She probed a little and immediately found that this Dark North pill was different. Hiss! Xue Jinwen sucked in a breath of cold air and looked up at Meng Qi in disbelief. "It sealed the Dark North technique?" "Yes." Meng Qi nodded. "What's the effect?" Xue Jinwen asked again. In fact, she had already vaguely guessed it, but she still heard Meng Qi say, "It can instantly restore a quarter of the spiritual energy of a cultivator of the same level. It can also slowly restore the other quarter in the time it takes to burn a stick of incense." TSK. Xue Jinwen raised the Dark North pill high. She faced the sun and looked at the blue pill in her hand. The breeze pill seals the breeze technique, but it's exquisite. It's not very useful unless it's a 5th grade or 6th grade pill. However, the Dark North pill seals the Dark North technique and can instantly restore spiritual energy. TSK. Xue Jinwen sighed softly. Medical cultivator sects will definitely rush to buy it and study it when they return. I'm afraid those large sects will also need it. Moreover, they will be willing to pay a high price and buy it in large quantities. If you can refine Dark North pills like the 3rd grade to the 5th grade, sister. She narrowed her eyes slightly and turned her head to look at Meng Qi. The corners of her eyes rose slightly, and she looked even more charming. If you were short of spirit stones in the past, you definitely won't be in the future. Let's go. Xue Jinwen returned the porcelain bottle to Meng Qi. It should be auctioned this time. Thank you, sister. Meng Qi smiled sweetly at her. But now, I can only refine second-grade Dark North pills like this at most. Chapter 19. Second grade? Xue Jinwen held the porcelain bottle, her gaze sliding across Meng Qi's face. Xue Jinwen came from an extraordinary background and was knowledgeable. She understood the value of these pills very well. There was no need to talk about her ingenuity. Pills were made from medicinal materials. During this process, the essence would be extracted and mixed with many kinds of medicinal materials. It was not a simple matter to attach the incantation to it. She saw that Meng Qi's face was so tender that water could be pinched out. There was still some childishness on his face. She also guessed that the other came from some hidden medical cultivation sect, which was why he had such outstanding medicine-making skills at such a young age. However, it was impossible for a genius disciple from such a hidden sect to only be able to refine second-grade pills. Xue Jinwen did not know what to say for a moment. If it's only second grade. She thought for a moment and muttered, then I'm afraid many sects will not be interested. After all, second-grade Dan pills were mostly used by Zhuji, and were of little value to Jindan. You know. Xue Jinwen looked at Meng Qi. The gap between Lianqi and Zhuji may not be far, but core formation is a watershed. The gap between Zhuji and Lianqi has already been pulled apart. The higher you go, the greater the gap between each major realm of cultivation. At the spirit severing stage, the increase of a small realm is a whole new world. En. Meng Qi nodded. Simply speaking, in the 3,000 worlds, a Zhuji Shouja may only be able to fight 5 Lianqi Shouja. But a Jindan Shouja could easily deal with 10 Zhuji Shouja. At the spirit severing stage, a first-level spirit severing stage Shouja could easily deal with 30 to 40 Yuanying Shouja. At the Great Ascension stage, it was truly a step of heaven and earth. The increase of a small realm was also very terrifying. Meng Qi's talent in cultivation was far inferior to her medical skills. Her progress was mediocre. In her last life, she was only a Jindan Shouja before she died. That was because there were people who were worried that her cultivation would drag down her medical skills, so they did everything they could to help her reach core formation. Meng Qi knew that the second-grade Dark North pill was not very valuable. However, medical cultivation sects would be very interested. Large sects, such as the Burning Sky Palace, would have specialized medicine branches. It was impossible for him to let go of such a novel pill. Therefore, Meng Qi was sure that they could film it. This was the Dark North pill, which was different from the Clear Wind pill. This was a household necessity, and it was also one of the most commonly used and expended pills in fights between sects. But I still want to try, Meng Qi said. All right. Xue Jinwen stared at her calm and confident face for a moment and smiled sweetly. Although it will be a little troublesome if you want to go to the auction house. But I'll think of something. Xue Jinwen genuinely admired Meng Qi. It was probably because when a senior saw an ambitious and talented junior, he would spontaneously want to help the other party. Otherwise, she would not have promised that Meng Qi could go to the West Kingdom to look for her. Thank you, elder sister. Meng Qi bowed. She took the porcelain bottle and poured out 3 Dark North pills from it. This is for elder sister as a thank you gift. You can imprint it with your divine sense, and I will send it to the courier station later. You have a sweet mouth. Xue Jinwen could not help but smile sweetly again. She did not stand on ceremony with Meng Qi. Sometimes, reciprocity was also part of establishing a friendship. Thank you. Xue Jinwen left her imprint on the 3 Dark North pills. Tomorrow, there will be an auction at the Xian auction house. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. Then I'll come back tomorrow. Oh right. Xue Jinwen suddenly remembered. She reached out to Meng Qi. Give me your nameplate. Xue Jinwen took Meng Qi's nameplate. Little Qi? She knew that this was not his real name, but she still smiled. It's a very cute name. Mengqi also smiled. His real name was even cuter. This nameplate has other uses. Shui Jinwen said and took out her nameplate. She left her divine sense imprint on Mengqi's nameplate. She also asked him to leave a touch on his nameplate. This way, if you have any problems next time, you can look for me directly. Shui Jinwen explained, you can use spiritual energy to communicate with me from 1,000 miles away. Okay. Mengqi nodded. She took her black nameplate, which looked like an ordinary bamboo slip, and looked at it repeatedly. Every time Mengqi came to this sky beyond heaven, she felt more and more admiration for the owner of this place. The other party had many wonderful ideas, which were really amazing. Mengqi could not help but think of her master. Her master was also a genius who constantly thought of wonderful ideas. Then I'll take my leave first. Mengqi bowed to Shui Jinwen again. She followed the manager of the Sky Beyond Heaven city and walked toward the teleportation array. The second time she came, she already knew that she was on the floating island where the Xian auction house was located. Therefore, the surrounding white clouds seemed to be leisurely and the sky seemed to be closer. Mengqi could not help but look up at a higher place. The earth, the sky, and then the Sky Beyond Heaven building, which was said to have all kinds of delicious food from the trichiliocosm. Further up, there seemed to be a white cloud on the horizon. The peerless and independent floating island was probably the residence of the owner of this place. Fellow Daoist. Fellow Daoist. Mengqi retracted her gaze and smiled at the person. Sorry, I was a little distracted. It's normal. The person was quite proud. Many new cultivators are also very surprised when they see the Sky Beyond Heaven city and the floating island for the first time. He paused and said, however, there are very few people like you who can get the favor of fellow Daoist Shui and be invited to the auction when you just entered the Sky Beyond Heaven. He had always been very polite to Mengqi, but today he was especially patient. Mengqi smiled at him. Fellow Daoist, if you have the chance in the future, you can go to the Sky Beyond Heaven building once. The person led Mengqi to the teleportation formation and introduced, there are all the delicious food that can be seen and eaten in the trichiliocosm. There are also many delicacies that can't be eaten or seen in the trichiliocosm. Okay. Mengqi nodded. If there was anything in this world, she did not want to let down even after her rebirth. Delicious food was definitely one of them. Above the Sky Beyond Heaven building, Mengqi looked up at the leisurely independent floating island in the sky. Is it the residence of the Sky Beyond Heaven's master? Yes, and no. The person smiled mysteriously. In fact, many people have asked this question before. But to be honest, we don't know either. No one has ever been there, and no one has ever seen the real master of the Sky Beyond Heaven. I see, Mengqi was not surprised. There were countless cultivators in the trichiliocosm, and many people knew about the Sky Beyond Heaven. If someone had seen the master of this place, there would always be a few words about it. Mengqi had been to many places in the past, and she had a knowledgeable master. Even so, she had never heard him mention the Sky Beyond Heaven. Mengqi quickly returned to her room. The little white tiger was still lying beside her. Its injured front paws were stretched out obediently, and it was sleeping lazily with its eyes closed. Mengqi opened her eyes, and he also looked up alertly. Little Qi. Mengqi happily rubbed his head and pinched his ears. Why didn't she think of raising a fluffy spirit beast before? It was really super cute. It was addictive to touch. I'll be able to get the jackdaw grass soon. Mengqi jumped off the bed and walked towards the door. I'm going to the library. Stay in the room obediently. Elder Yang wasn't in the library. Without his permission, disciples were not allowed to go to the 4th floor to get books. Mengqi asked the disciple guarding the library with some disappointment, Senior brother, where did Elder Yang go? Did he say when he would be back? Junior sister Meng doesn't know. That day in the main hall, the nascent soul elder from the Burning Sky Palace had invited Mengqi to their sect. Almost every disciple of the Cool Breeze Valley had seen it. After this incident, everyone in the Cool Breeze Valley had a new understanding of this junior sister. This Cool Breeze Valley disciple who was in charge of guarding the library and assisting Elder Yang hurriedly said politely to Meng Qi, "All the elders in the sect have followed the sect master and the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace. Elder Zun has gone to destroy the demons." Shouting. "Orc destroy the demons?" Meng Qi was stunned. "That's right." The disciple nodded. Elder Zun Yang of the Burning Sky Palace led the team. Before he left, he said that he would be back in 10 days or half a month. "Yes." Meng Qi nodded. She remembered this incident. Although she was still locked up in the dungeon when this incident happened in her previous life. Later, after she was released, someone told her what happened during this period of time. At that time, it was also because the reinforcements of the Burning Sky Palace arrived in time that the entire Cool Breeze Valley and even the ordinary residents of Cool Breeze Town were spared. After this incident, the Cool Breeze Valley merged into the Burning Sky Palace and became a small branch of the Burning Sky Palace. Of course, because of Lu Qingran, the people of the Burning Sky Palace were still polite to them. They even gave the Cool Breeze Valley a place not far from the main peak of the Burning Sky Palace, which had far more spirit chi than the current Green Peak. In this life, Chu Tianfeng recovered even faster, and Elder Zun Yang personally led the team. It was expected that things would go even smoother. Meng Qi was relieved. "Thank you, senior brother." She bowed to the disciple. "I'll take my leave first." Elder Yang wasn't here, so Meng Qi couldn't read the books on the 4th floor. She had already memorized the books on the 3rd floor. She simply went down the mountain to Cool Breeze Town and gave the 3 Dark North pills that she had promised to Xue Jinwen to the relay station. After finishing this, Meng Qi returned to her room. Little Qi was still lying lazily on the bamboo bed. When he heard Meng Qi push the door open and enter, he raised his head and glanced at her. She didn't know if it was because of his injury, but Little Qi always looked lazy. Meng Qi checked the wound on his front paw. Blood was still slowly oozing out. The wound flickered with a silver light, and it looked very strange. Meng Qi gently pinched Little Qi's furry paw with some heartache. "Let's rest early today." As she said this, she laid down on the bed again. "Little Qi?" He didn't have time to shrink back to the wall. Meng Qi, who was familiar with him, had already grabbed him and imprisoned him by her side. "There's an auction in Beyond Heaven tomorrow. I have to wake up early. Don't mess around." The girl's soft hair scattered on the bamboo bed, slowly mixing with Little White Tiger's soft white fur. Her breathing gradually became even, and her body still smelled faintly of medicine. Little White Tiger's body stiffened for a moment. Soon, he slowly relaxed. Meng Qi was very careful. Even when she hugged him, she carefully avoided touching his wound. But Little White Tiger slowly stretched out his paw and placed it on Meng Qi's slender wrist. He was just a cultivator who hadn't even reached the foundation establishment stage. A gentle blow could turn him into ashes. He wasn't afraid of her at all. It was just that his injury was really too serious, and he was too lazy to struggle. Little White Tiger slowly closed his eyes, and his breathing gradually became long and deep. The next day, Meng Qi woke up very early. At the appointed time with Xue Jinwen, she punctually appeared at the Xian floating island in Beyond Heaven, outside the other party's courtyard. "Let's go." The auction was in the morning, and it officially started at 9 o'clock. Xue Jinwen led Meng Qi to the Xian auction hall in the center of the floating island, and quickly said, "The rules of the Beyond Heaven auction hall are the same for Heaven, Earth, and Xian. The lower the grade of the item, the earlier it will be auctioned." She said, "The final item usually appears at the end. There hasn't been an auction here for a long time." Second-grade elixirs. Xue Jinwen couldn't help but laugh. "So your North Dark elixir will be the first item to be auctioned today." Meng Qi nodded. "Thank you, sister. We're here." Xue Jinwen stopped in her tracks. This is the Xian auction hall in Beyond Heaven. Countless treasures, weapons, and cultivation techniques in the Trichiliocosm come in and out from here. Meng Qi heard this and looked forward. An inconspicuous courtyard was right in front of them. Just from the outside, it didn't look as big as the place where Xue Jinwen lived. However, the house was simple and unadorned. It was surrounded by clouds and mist, and it really felt like an immortal. Probably because there was an auction today. Not long after Meng Qi and the others arrived, there was a steady stream of cultivators walking toward the courtyard. The place didn't look big, but no matter how many people went in, it didn't seem to be full. Meng Qi casually glanced at those cultivators. Xue Jinwen explained, in order to protect the buyers participating in the auction, each person has their own place. As she spoke, she walked forward. Come with me. Meng Qi was startled and was about to follow her. A man in a white robe suddenly brushed past her. That person was very tall, dressed in a white robe, and was very fast. Meng Qi didn't see him take a step, and the other party's figure brushed past her in an instant. She could only see the other party's tall and straight back. His black hair was tied up by a small white jade crown on his head. As his long sleeves fluttered, he looked like an immortal. As if feeling Meng Qi's gaze, the white-robed man suddenly turned his head slightly to look at her, revealing his delicate chin. Even if it was just a hurried side profile, in the trichiliocosm where there were countless beauties, it was enough to be called elegant and noble. It was unknown how many people would fall for him. Meng Qi suddenly widened her eyes. This was Chapter 20. Meng Qi only felt the man's cold gaze sweep across her face. The man seemed to chuckle. His laughter was the same as his gaze, proud and cold, like the white snow on a high mountain, without any warmth, only looking down on the world. Before she could react, the white-robed man quickly turned his head. He took another step and stepped into the courtyard that was still some distance away. His figure completely disappeared, disappearing without a trace. Little Qi? Xue Jinwen waved at her. Why are you in a daze? Meng Qi suddenly came back to her senses. White robe, black hair, a handsome side profile, and a small white jade crown that tied up his hair. If she wasn't mistaken, that person wasn't dazed. Xue Jinwen chuckled, seemingly not surprised at all. That was Su Junmo just now. Many female cultivators who see him for the first time have the same expression. Su Junmo? Meng Qi walked to Xue Jinwen's side and softly repeated these words. She wasn't surprised by the man's appearance, but she didn't expect to see Su Junmo in the heavens beyond heaven. He's quite famous in the heavens beyond heaven, Xue Jinwen said as she continued to lead Meng Qi to the courtyard. The gate of the courtyard looked no different from her residence. As soon as she stepped in, Meng Qi understood what it meant by one step leads to heaven and earth. As soon as they entered, they found themselves in a room that wasn't too big. There were only 3 walls in the room, and there was only a hollowed-out screen on the other side. Looking through the hollowed-out patterns on the screen, they could see an open high platform in front of them. The high platform should be built with a huge piece of bluestone surrounded by green mountains. Many similar rooms could be faintly seen on the mountain walls. But it was unknown whether there was anyone inside. When Meng Qi looked up, he could only see a cloud shrouded in mist. Xue Jinwen guessed her thoughts and said, "There are some invited guests with different identities above." "Okay." Meng Qi nodded. Xian Auction House. There are a total of 999 rooms of different sizes on the surrounding mountain walls. She sat down on a chair in the room. "We're already the smallest." The higher they went, the bigger the rooms became. "Once we reach the peak of the mountain, we will be able to see the complete courtyard." Xue Jinwen said, "Once the auction starts, you can directly bid using your nameplate." The auctioneer would constantly update the latest and highest prices. Throughout the auction, other than the staff here, no one would know who had bought the item. Of course. She raised the corner of her lips and tidied up a strand of hair on her temples with a faint smile. There are also people who are willing to directly bid. The cultivators who can enter here are not nameless in the 3,000 worlds. They are easily recognized. Meng Qi nodded as if he understood. She was extremely talented in medical skills, but she was relatively ignorant in other matters. She could faintly feel that what Xue Jinwen said just now was not as simple as introducing the auction rules. But she could not say where the problem was. "Sit," Xue Jinwen said as she picked up the teapot on the table and poured a cup of tea for Meng Qi. The fragrance of the tea rose. She also looked up at a higher place hidden by the clouds. "When the auction starts, You will understand what I mean, she said. Right. Shui Jinwen looked at Meng Qi, who sat down next to her. Your North Deep Dan will be the first item to appear. Meng Qi nodded. Shui Jinwen had just told her. It was almost 9 now. Meng Qi looked at the screen in front of her. She couldn't even hear the movements in the room next to them. She didn't know how many people had arrived in this vast auction house. 2KXS la also, that Su Junmo just now. Meng Qi's eyelids drooped slightly, her long eyelashes covering the light in her eyes. She knew this person. In the past, Lu Qingran had a mysterious but powerful suitor. He was handsome and peerless. His face was naturally stunning. The other party was extremely generous. At that time, Lu Qingran was already a third-grade medical cultivator. A large number of medicinal materials needed for refining medicine were provided by that man. The other party's casual and unrestrained movements were different from the other male cultivators that Lu Qingran knew. At that time, who was she with? Meng Qi's eyes wandered. Her senior sister had too many men under her skirt. She couldn't remember which male cultivator Lu Qingran was with at that time. But after this mysterious suitor appeared, Lu Qingran soon couldn't resist his powerful attack. When Meng Qi went out to pick herbs on a moonlit night, she saw her senior sister and the other party walking under the moon in the wind. It was romantic and sweet. That mysterious and powerful suitor was Su Junmo. Later, by chance, Meng Qi found out that he was a demon cultivator. And he was the sky demon aristocrat that demon cultivators talked about. Her original form was a pure white fox with 5 tails. She was very beautiful. Even though she was seriously injured and lying on the ground, her soft white fur was stained with blood. It didn't seem to affect the beauty of the fox at all. Meng Qi tilted her head slightly, her eyes wandering. But the feeling of touching her was still not as good as little Cheese. Moreover, an adult fox was already a big fox with 5 tails. It was far less cute than little Qi. She was very beautiful, but she was a little less cute. Little Qi? Her. Meng Qi came back to her senses. She remembered that Su Junmo should appear 2 or 3 years later. At that time, she was already at the peak of the foundation establishment realm. Her medical skills were already on the verge of third-grade perfection. She didn't expect to see him so long in advance because of heavens beyond. Meng Qi narrowed her eyes. The auction is about to begin, Shui Jinwen reminded Meng Qi. Okay. Meng Qi nodded. She collected her thoughts and stopped thinking about Su Junmo. At the same time, on the peak of Green Mountain around the Shen auction house. Surrounded by clouds and fog, a huge courtyard occupied a large part of the mountain wall. This was already the highest point of the auction house. There were only 2 courtyards in total. It was different from the room where Meng Qi and Shui Jinwen were. Not only was this courtyard much more spacious, but it also had its own garden. There was even a small lake in the garden. From time to time, colorful koi fish would jump out of the water. There were many exotic flowers and herbs planted in the garden. A faint fragrance of plants and trees filled the air. Just this fragrance alone was enough to make people feel refreshed and comfortable. Su Junmo stood tall and respectfully waited outside the door. The coldness and pride that Meng Qi saw just now had long disappeared from his unusually handsome face. My lord. He opened his mouth. His clear voice trembled slightly, as if he couldn't believe it. Since you left, everyone has been looking for you everywhere. The disputes in the clan have restarted. In 9 years, it will be the day of the Demon Lord's resurrection. Many idiots think that this is an opportunity and are already trying to rope in various forces. They are ready to make a move. I know. A lazy and indifferent man's voice interrupted Su Junmo. Let them fight. Footsteps sounded in the room. A man in a white robe slowly walked out. Su Junmo didn't dare to raise his head. He looked at the ground and stood respectfully beside the man. He had followed this man for a long time and could understand some of his habits. He knew that the more lazy and indifferent the man looked, the more angry he was. The auction is about to begin. The man in the white robe raised his hand and interrupted Su Junmo. Yes. Su Junmo felt a little strange, but he still kept his mouth shut. The Xian auction was only held 3 times a month. The rare treasures were limited. He didn't know why the master had come. He had also received the summons and hurried over. Otherwise, a Xian auction like this wouldn't be worth Su Junmo's time. Which auction item does the master need? Su Junmo asked respectfully. The list of auction items flashed through his mind. There didn't seem to be anything particularly outstanding. The most outstanding item was probably the first auction item. It was said to be a second-grade Dark North pill. Su Junmo was a little surprised when he saw the list of auction items. Not to mention the Xian auction house, the realm beyond heaven hadn't sold second-grade pills for many years. The man in the white robe didn't say anything. A strange light flashed through his eyes. He raised his long eyebrows. Su Junmo's question seemed to have reminded him of something. A faint smile flashed through his starry eyes. The lazy expression on his face disappeared and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. In terms of looks, Su Junmo could be said to be incomparably handsome. He was even more handsome than the young palace master of the Burning Sky Palace. But in front of the man in the white robe, he seemed a little dull. Moreover, the other party was, the man in the white robe waved his sleeve, and the clouds in front of him slowly dispersed. A middle-aged cultivator was already standing in the center of the large bluestone platform. The auction was about to begin. Meng Qi's attention was also focused on the middle-aged cultivator on the bluestone. She looked calm, as if she didn't feel nervous at all. On the contrary, Xue Jinwen looked at the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction, and then looked at Meng Qi. Little Qi. She called the name left on Meng Qi's nameplate. Are you nervous? I'm fine. Meng Qi shook his head. She looked up again. She felt strange. According to Xue Jinwen, the cultivators participating in the auction shouldn't be able to see each other if they were willing. But she felt as if someone was looking at her. Moreover, that gaze came from above, carrying a hint of playfulness and inquisitiveness. Was it an illusion? Meng Qi slowly retracted his gaze. Sister Xue. Meng Qi turned his head and asked Xue Jinwen, should fellow Daoist Su Junmo be up there? Yes. Xue Jinwen nodded. Su Junmo is very famous in heavens beyond heaven. She said, although he's very young, he's already a cultivator at the first level of the spirit severing stage. Meng Qi nodded. She glanced at Xue Jinwen, feeling a little strange. It wasn't strange for her to know that Su Junmo was a spirit severing stage cultivator. Meng Qi had even seen Su Junmo's 5 tails. But, didn't Xue Jinwen know that Su Junmo was a white fox and a demon cultivator? He once held a banquet in heavens beyond heaven. That day, a strange fragrance assailed the nostrils of everyone in heavens beyond city, and their spiritual senses were tempered. Until now, no one knows what kind of treasure was used for the main dish that day. Xue Jinwen added. Even third Miss Xue, who came from a large sect in the Western Land, blushed at the mention of Xue Jinwen, and her eyes shone brightly. But who would have thought that this extremely handsome heavenly demon aristocrat would have a soft spot for senior sister Lu Qingran? The daughter of the heavenly Dao, she really lived up to her reputation. There are also people who say. Xue Jinwen lowered her voice. He knows the owner of this place. Oh! Meng Qi raised his eyebrows in surprise. But these are all rumors, and no one knows the truth. Xue Jinwen smiled and tidied her hair again. There have always been many legends about the owner of this place, and we've all become numb to hearing them. As soon as she finished speaking, a clear voice sounded. The middle-aged male cultivator standing on the large bluestone high platform whistled softly. The auction begins. Chapter 21. Xue Jinwen did not speak anymore. Meng Qi and she looked at the middle-aged male cultivator together. The other party waved his hand, and a light green porcelain bottle appeared in the air. The porcelain bottle looked very simple and did not have the slightest bit of color. Meng Qi recognized it. It was the porcelain bottle that she had bought at the Cloud Immortal Pavilion. The cheapest one cost 10 first-grade spirit stones. She pulled herself together. She had participated in auctions in the Trichilia Chasm before. She did not know if it would be different in this sky beyond heaven. The middle-aged male cultivator said loudly, "The first item of the Shen auction, 12 second-grade Dark North pills." As soon as the other party's voice fell, someone chuckled PFFF. There was not much sarcasm in the laughter, as if it was just a subconscious instinctive reaction. Xue Jinwen glanced in the direction of the laughter and could only tell that it was the laughter of a young woman. Meng Qi was calm and composed, as if she did not hear it. This laughter seemed to have started, and soon, someone else followed suit. The laughter was endless, although there was not much malice. However, most of the people who came to participate in the auction were not here for the first time. Obviously, they felt that the style this time was a little different. After a moment of laughter, someone said with a smile, "This porcelain bottle that contains the Dark North pills, is it from the Cloud Immortal Pavilion that costs 10 first-grade spirit stones?" The person who spoke was a young male cultivator. As soon as he finished speaking, there was more laughter than before. The Sky Beyond Heaven auction house, even the lowest-level Shen auction house, never auctioned ordinary items. These people actually knew that. However, to use the cheapest porcelain bottle to contain 12 second-grade Dark North pills, these cultivators were experienced and knowledgeable, and they really could not think of anything special. If it was any other medicine, then forget it. The Dark North pill. That was a pill that could be refined by any second-grade medical cultivator in the Trichilia chasm. Everyone here had taken it before, and they could not be more familiar with it. Especially some cultivators from medical cultivation sects. Even if they did not laugh out loud, they shook their heads with a smile in their rooms. Not long after medical cultivators appeared in the Trichilia chasm, someone refined the Dark North pill. The prescription later spread out, and countless medical cultivators studied and improved it for thousands of years. The current Dark North pill was already an improved version made by a certain great medical cultivator 1,000 years ago. Compared with the original Dark North pill, the speed of recovering spiritual energy was 3 times higher, and the time needed was halved. If there were any improvements that could be made to the Dark North pill, it could only be in terms of time and efficacy. In the past 1,000 years, new recipes for the Dark North pill would occasionally appear. Perhaps the efficacy of the medicine could be improved a little, but that was usually because the medicine was more precious. In this way, the cost would increase, but the increase in efficacy would be limited. It was not worth it. Most of the medical shou did not laugh out loud like the other shouja. Almost all of them had spent their lives studying medicine and medicine. They could vaguely guess that the Dark North pill that appeared in the dark auction house might be different. However, most of them felt that a few of the medicinal herbs should be replaced. Just like those new Dark North pill prescriptions that appeared out of nowhere. Using more precious and higher-ranked herbs, of course, he could refine a Dark North pill with better medicinal effects. But no matter what, he was still a rank 2. The elders among the medical cultivators couldn't help but smile and shake their heads. It was most likely some young medical cultivator who had done something so wasteful that the gains did not make up for the losses. There was endless laughter in the auction house. Since the dark auction house was built, there had never been such a relaxed and joyful time. After all, no one expected that the first auction item in Sky Beyond Heaven today would be a rank 2 Dark North pill like a joke. Some people even felt that this was a deliberate gimmick for the following auction items. Amidst the laughter, the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction remained unmoved. He still had a faint smile on his face, and even his voice was still so calm and steady. 12 rank 2 Dark North pills. The starting price is 50 rank 6 spirit stones. Phut. Someone laughed again. 50 rank 6 spirit stones? This is nothing. At least he has some self-awareness. Meng Qi looked in the direction of the sound. Did she set the price too low? Xue Jinwen had asked her before and suggested that she set the starting price at 30 to 60 rank 6 spirit stones and 12 Dark North pills. Meng Qi set 50 rank 6 spirit stones. This was not a lot. There were so many rich cultivators in the 3000 world. But Cloud Immortal Pavilion bought rank 2 Dark North pills for 50 rank 6 spirit stones. Fellow Daoist, you can eat them as much as you want. You won't be able to finish them even if you eat for half a year, someone said. This person's words caused another burst of laughter. Rank 3 Dark North pills are only 20 rank 3 spirit stones each, someone else said. It makes me a little curious. What's the difference between these 12 rank 2 Dark North pills? Another person quickly said, it's cheap anyway. Let's bid for it and try it. Is it as delicious as dragon liver and phoenix marrow? 51 rank 6 spirit stones. Meng Qi, even so, someone really bid for it. She didn't know that 50 rank 6 spirit stones were nothing to the cultivators who could come here. Although the Xian auction house was the lowest level auction house in the human realm upon heavens, the price of a 5th grade item could be calculated in the trillions of 6th grade spirit stones. For the people here, 50 rank 6 spirit stones might be worth more than a glass of spirit wine. Then, I'll bid 52 rank 6 spirit stones. You guys. I'd like to try it too. 53. 54 then. Everyone laughed and raised the price one by one. They didn't take this auction seriously at all. Meng Qi rested her chin on her hand and tapped her slender fingers on the table lightly. Xue Jinwen glanced at her and comforted her. Don't worry, martial artist will introduce the auction item. She paused and explained, this is the special feature of the dark auction house. The item will be released first and everyone can make a bid in advance. If no more than 3 people make a bid, the item will belong to the highest bidder. Then, martial artist will introduce the auction item. She smiled sweetly, it's a bit like gambling. Or, when auctioning some items that even we can't judge the price of for the time being, this method will be used. Meng Qi nodded silently. In other words, if there was a precious item that even the treasure appraisers of sky beyond heaven could not recognize. If the people participating in the auction also couldn't recognize the item, they might be able to pick it up. She rested her chin on one hand and listened to everyone's laughter. In the end, the price of the Dark North pill was pushed to 76th grade spirit stones. That meant that more than 3 people had bid. Next, the middle-aged male cultivator in charge of the auction began to introduce the Dark North pill. The auction house was quiet for a moment. The middle-aged male cultivator surnamed Wu cleared his throat and was about to speak. A clear and pleasant male voice came from above. 206th grade spirit stones. Everyone was in an uproar. The voice came from above. It was obviously an honored guest invited by sky beyond heaven. Could it be that there was something special about this Dark North pill? But for a moment, no one said anything. Just now, the price was still raised one by one, and the price was not high. But now, the person who raised the price directly raised the price to 206th grade spirit stones. Then, the next price increase would be at least 336th grade spirit stones. In this way, the price would soon be raised very high. Meng Qi looked up in surprise. Others might not be able to hear it. Even Xue Jinwen did not react. But she heard it clearly. This voice was clearly Su Junmo. She was very familiar with his voice. After all, he had been seriously injured by the enchantment and was hunted down by the demon realm. He was seriously injured. Meng Qi spent nearly a month with him day and night. In order to save his life, she used her medical skills, which had just reached the great perfection of the 3rd grade at that time, to go against the heavens and forcefully save his life. During that month, Su Junmo was sometimes unconscious and sometimes awake. When he was awake, he didn't like to talk, but when he was unconscious, he was quite talkative. Especially when he couldn't maintain his human form and revealed his 5-tailed fox form, he was even more noisy. There were several times when Meng Qi couldn't bear it and wanted to stuff this noisy fox's mouth. So later, Su Junmo recovered from his injuries and became the arrogant and cold handsome man who attracted the admiration of countless female cultivators. Every time Meng Qi saw him, she could only think of the noisy white fox. The contrast was not cute, but there was an indescribable defiance. When she saw Su Junmo's proud face in human form, she couldn't help but think of Su Junmo's noisy appearance in the white fox form. Then she couldn't help but want to avoid him. Otherwise, she really couldn't help but want to laugh. However, from Su Junmo's mouth, Meng Qi learned a lot about the demon cultivators. She knew that Su Junmo was a noble among the heavenly demons. She also knew the boundary between humans and demons. She also heard him talk about some things about the demon realm. Before that, Meng Qi's understanding of the demon realm was completely based on the alien races separated by the enchantment and the barrier. In short, she was very familiar with Su Junmo's voice. Even though she had been reborn, she recognized it immediately. The Xian auction house quieted down again. The middle-aged male cultivator coughed lightly and said loudly, "The first auction item, these 12 Dark North pills, each sealed with a Dark North spell, 100 Alliance book." Before the middle-aged male cultivator finished speaking, the audience was in an uproar. Dark North spell? Sealed in the Dark North pill? Are you joking? The Heavens Beyond auction house never jokes. How is it sealed? What about the medicinal effect? The second-grade Dark North pill is sealed with the second-grade Dark North spell? What about the medicinal effect? How is the medicinal effect of the Dark North pill sealed with the Dark North spell? Double or shorten the time? Are you sure it's only second grade? As soon as the middle-aged male cultivator said that, the laughing and joking atmosphere just now was swept away. Those cultivators who were joking and shouting just now, wanting to buy this Dark North pill to taste it and see what was special about it, instantly became serious. Questions were asked incessantly. The middle-aged male cultivator had presided over countless auctions. He stood on the high platform with a smile and listened to the discussions of the cultivators. When the atmosphere was enthusiastic enough, he slowly opened his mouth. He had privilege. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice overpowered the crowd and clearly reached everyone's ears. The second-grade Dark North pill sealed with the Dark North spell can instantly restore a quarter of the spiritual energy of a Foundation establishment cultivator. The audience was in an uproar again. This time, no one asked anything else. Just the words instant recovery were enough to attract people. 330 pieces of 6th-grade Ling stones. Someone instantly made a bid. 500 pieces of 6th-grade Ling stones. Someone immediately followed. 700 pieces. 1 piece of 7th-grade Ling stone. The middle-aged male cultivator smiled slightly and calmly continued, and in the next 15 minutes, it can continuously restore a quarter of the spiritual energy. Of course, this pill is a second-grade Dark North pill and is most effective for Foundation establishment cultivators. It most likely will not be as effective for Jindan. He didn't need to remind them. The Xiozha here knew this. Being able to recover half of the spiritual energy of a Foundation establishment cultivator, for a Jindan, it probably wouldn't even be 1/10. But so what? It wasn't that there weren't Dan that could instantly recover spiritual energy. But most of them were high-level Dan. They were hard to make and the materials needed were even more precious. The cost was so high that even the top sects of the 3,000 worlds and the 4 great Jie were not willing to use them daily. Usually, they would only be used in times of great sect wars or in times of danger. But this was a Dark North pill. Simply put, this was a common item that could be found everywhere. Large sects would definitely be willing to prepare hundreds or thousands of pills for their direct disciples or elders to eat. 2 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. Someone immediately made a bid. 3 pieces. 5 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. Everyone had the same thoughts. While this pill was second grade, they would buy it and study it to see if it could be made into third grade or even higher Dark North pills. Whichever sect could make it first would basically mean that they would have a certain advantage in the sect wars in the next few decades. Meng Qi just took a sip of tea. In a blink, the price of her 12 Dark North pills was raised to 20 pieces of 7th-grade Ling stones. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.